Hey folks, this is Joe. What you're about to watch is a video version of a podcast we recorded in 2011 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Super NES launch in North America. Thanks to the generosity of our Extra Life donors in 2017, we hit an incentive to turn these into videos, and do another one. While we did the new one, a PS2 draft, earlier this year, I've been dragging my feet on getting the old ones turned into video. Sorry about that. But I did capture all this game footage myself, and all but 2 of the games were captured using my analog Super NT, putting out crisp 1080p footage. Now those couple of games I did have to capture using the Higen emulator. Also, some of these games I'm not super familiar with and don't have saves deep into, so you'll see a lot of early game footage here. As for the audio, this is a 7-year-old podcast, so there are some things to keep in mind. First of all, we don't have the original audio tracks anymore, so I wasn't able to rebalance everything. Sorry about that. Also, when this was recorded, there were only 4 episodes of Same Name Different Game. Now there are almost 70. We weren't streaming every week, just making bi-weekly audio podcasts. The 3DS had just come out. The Wii U, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch weren't out yet. And don't listen to anything we say about prices or the value of these SNES games. They've almost universally gone way up in price since 2011. And if we recorded this today, there's a good chance the list wouldn't be exactly the same, but definitely feel free to tell us your favorite Super NES games in the comments. Enjoy.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I'm nervous.
He has gotten hype.
Alright. Oh shit, let's get on the stick while Kurt's typing into his computer.
That's right.
Click.
Tonight on a very special On the Stick. So everybody loved our NES draft so much that we decided to do another one. We just added an S to it.
That's the only difference.
Yeah, that's the only difference. We're going to pick exactly the same game. We're just going to say.
No, this is...
No, you got it all wrong. We supersized it.
You just go back to our list. Draft. You go to our list of games from the NES draft and you just put Super in front of all of them.
That's right. That's what it seemed like Nintendo was doing when they first released the Super Nintendo. So anyway, I am your ringmaster for this extravaganza. I am Kurt Adam, and I am being the ringmaster because I have a huge gaping hole in my gaming background, in which the 16-bit era fits. I missed out on the lion's share of that stuff, and rather than actually do the legwork and play like 40 different games just to try and come up with some for a list, we decided to get somebody else who has much more knowledge than me in this area, at least, and that would be our friend of the podcast, Alex Rio.
Hello. It's also, I should mention that I actually did not have a Super Nintendo either, but I did play it at other people's houses all the time, and I would say probably my entire freshman year of high school was spent not doing homework, sitting in front of a computer playing SNES games on emulators. So
there you go.
Yes. So those are my credentials. That's my cred.
You have established your bona fides very well. We also have our usual gang of misfits and chuckleheads and such. We have from the frozen north, which is not so frozen these days. I heard it was 100 and some in Toronto last week, which you're not in.
What does that even mean?
Mike Ailes.
Yeah. Heatwave broke. I'm doing fine. How about you? Still drilling?
I'm doing fine. It was actually
that was awkward. I'm sorry.
That was awkward.
Newly returned from California and thus back on the podcast after a couple of misses is Joe Drilling.
Only one miss. I only missed one.
We missed you more than that.
Thank you very much for that. Surprisingly, because we always like to talk about the weather at the beginning, it was more temperate when I was visiting Alex than it is in my home of Wisconsin, where it is fucking ridiculously sweltering, but not as bad as it was last week.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
We have to get the small talk out of the way before we get rolling here.
Yeah,
right.
Get to business
before we supersize it. That's right, and enemas as well. And speaking of enemas, we also have who has missed more than just one.
Well, hang on now. Wait a second. You have to explain. How do I get the enema introduction?
It was just the word that was there that I ran with. Right. Luck of the draw, as you'll see when I reveal who gets to pick mine.
Aww.
But
Say my name.
Newly returned Eric Stephen Allen.
Hey, what's up? I am a chucklehead and a misfit and an enema, so all those are appropriate.
Anyway, so we're gonna do this in a similar manner to the way we did the NES draft. So we will go in order, and each person will pick a game, and that will knock it out of consideration for everybody else's lists, and then we'll compile one big, awesome list of all the things we chose, put them up in the show notes, and so on and so forth.
Right. All the games picked tonight are the Super Nintendo games you need to play.
Right.
You specifically, Kurt. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this list for myself, actually. So we're specifically not doing import games.
Yes.
It must be, I guess, U.S. releases, and we said no shenanigans with picking tricky bundles and things like that.
The one outlawed cart is Super Mario All-Stars plus World.
Right. Well, that's because that's not a
game.
Right. Well, and that's also not a proper retail release. Like that was a bundle pack in with the re-release Super Nintendo. I don't
so
think
was it a
ever
cartridge that had
released.
both on it? It just wasn't released as a separate thing.
Right.
Ah.
Right. It was a pack-in with like later Super Nintendos. There's no retail release of it.
And the All Stars is the 3 NES ones.
It's
with
4
redone graphics. Oh, 4.
Correct. It's 1 and the Japanese 2 and the American 2 and 3 with gussied up graphics.
So all the available NES proper Mario platforms. Anyway, so I'm not going to reveal the list up front. I'm just going to pick people.
Oh, you bastard!
That's okay, Alex. You get to go first.
Oh. Yeah.
So
By the way, I did do this randomly. I didn't pick to maximize screwing anybody, even if I wanted to. I did randomize the order. So.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, you get 30 seconds to make your decision, and then we get 4 minutes to talk about it.
All right.
So you got a timer?
One presumes you have your first pick right off the bat.
I do have my first pick, and it's tough because I was actually a little worried about this because I was afraid I was going to go first because I can't not pick the game I'm going to pick. I sort of toyed with the idea of picking Earthbound, even though I hate it, just to fuck with you guys. But I decided that's like a waste, and I thought like...
Now, I know what you're going to pick, and I'm already pissed off. So just pick it, and let's talk about how awesome it is.
Your 30 seconds are running out.
Yeah.
I know. And
otherwise, it'll default the next person, and you'll be fucked out of it.
All right, fine. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Yeah, fuck you.
Oh, sorry. I guess I dropped the music.
Well picked.
Yeah,
This is one of these that I actually have played.
It's hard though because there's like I know what games are not gonna get to me now, and I'm like fuck man, because those are all games I really wanted to get, but I can't say no to Zelda. There's only one. There's only one on this system, and I need to get it. So I mean, it's like
that was your preemptive guess, your preemptive pick.
And not only that, it's also maybe the best of all the Zeldas.
Take off the maybe, and I think you've got a point.
Yeah, it's my favorite, that's for sure. You can make an argument
Legend
for
of
some
Zelda
other ones,
game.
but
I don't know. It's hard for me to pick that because I love all the Zelda games like so much. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely up there. It's probably the best like top-down old style Zelda. You know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Old
No
school.
contest, I would say, for that.
I mean, I don't know. I think Link's Awakening gives a run for its money, even though
I really like Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening is really good, and people write off the Oracle games and Minish Cap, but I really liked all of those. But I mean, I think Link to the Past is still just probably the best.
Those games carried the style, not the style, but the spirit that a lot of people felt like got lost in the translation of 3D.
Yeah, I would agree with because I actually, I have a 3DS, and Ocarina of Time, which is my favorite, came out on 3DS, and I played through that again. It's great, and I still love it and everything. But then after that, Link's Awakening came out in the 3DS store, and I started playing that. And then I was like, I kind of forgot why I like Zelda in the first place, and that made me think about it. And then I started playing Link to the Past a little bit, and I was like,
So why do you like Zelda in the first place?
That's how much time? I don't know if we have enough time for that. But it's just they're different styles, and I forgot that the 3D and the 2D. The 2D is very okay, here's the world, go do what, figure it out. That's it. Just go do your thing. Whereas the 3D world, it's like, hey, go over here and go over there, and you
It's
kind
more of a role-playing game style approach with lots of NPCs and lots more dialogue. I think Link to the Past strikes the best balance between just giving you a world and they give you just enough pointers and enough people to talk to that you don't feel like you've been hung out to dry. But at the same time, you're discovering the world, and that's really engrossing for me.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, sort of quote unquote, out of order in Link to the Past, which is really cool. I mean, there's dungeons that you can find, especially once you reach the Dark World, which, I mean, that was a mind-blowing revelation back when I was a kid, that I had, I was feeling kind of almost let down by the game when I first played it, just because there's only 3 palaces, and then when you get to the end and fight the wizard, it's like, is that it? And then it's like, holy shit, no, that's not it.
That's not even close to it.
That's not even
right.
Close,
It's like 1/4 of the whole game.
Your game is in another castle.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get not only do you get a whole nother world to visit and explore, but it also gives you the tools to go back and find all kinds of awesome things in the light world as well. So
right, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we can go on for hours about how great Link to the Past is and how influenced games.
You got another minute.
Yeah,
really?
you have another minute.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That stupid.
So go on.
That stupid cane that makes blocks show up is awesome. It's also kind of stupid, but whatever.
I think is this the only game where that item made an appearance?
I think so.
Technically, he has it as a weapon in Soul Calibur 2.
Really?
But it doesn't make blocks appear, you just hit people with it.
Okay. Yeah,
That
that
doesn't hit
count,
people
though.
with the sword. He has a sword.
Right,
that's
you
his
can
main
get
thing.
different weapons in
Oh, I
Soul
see.
Calibur 2. So he can get, like, the hammer, and he can get the... what's his joke weapon? I think the cane is his joke weapon. But he can get, like, a bunch of different...
That makes sense. Maybe he could make a staph infection joke.
Oh god. Since we're running out of time, the one thing that I want to say about Link to the Past that I don't like about it, why does he have pink hair?
I don't know.
Because
know.
Japan.
Because why not?
That must not have been on the color palette, although it should have been, because the Super Nintendo could display whatever
Like
crazy
16
number
colors
amount
per
of
sprite.
colors. Right.
Yeah,
huge.
so
I don't know why.
I don't know. That's
All right.
always bugged me. I mean, but whatever.
Because pink hair looks cuter on a bunny.
That's it. Time's up.
Oh, that could be actually. Alright, great game.
All right, their hostmeister, who's up next?
Mr. Drilling, take your first pick.
So I had 2 games that I was going to choose that I couldn't decide between because I didn't think that I would actually get my first pick. But I do, so I'm going to go Super Mario World.
Ooh,
Hey, that's
That
pretty
also
good.
Mike's
bastard.
mad.
You bastard.
Mike's mad.
That would have been my first pick as well, just because it would have nicely dovetailed with picking Super Mario 3 and the other one.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
So Super Mario World is probably like the second best Mario game after Super Mario 3.
I was going to ask that question.
You're taking the game, it's not even your favorite Mario game, you're wasting it. It's wasted on you.
He doesn't appreciate it properly.
No,
Give it to me. I know how to appreciate Super Mario
I
fucking
definitely
world.
do. I actually played through it like the year that it was 2 years ago. Was it that Super Mario Brothers Wii came out? I played through like all of the old 2D Mario games, and I still maintain that that world is not as good as 3. But man, it's really fucking good. Like, and there's so much shit to find. Like, obviously, like to complete the game, you have to find all the exits. But like, since I hadn't played it, like given it a serious run in such a long time, it was really cool to sort of rediscover. Like, there's the one stage, like I think it's the Cheddar Bridge, where you have to like go under the goal and like jump up behind the goal, and then you get like the hidden goal, which like branches off into a whole new path, and the whole Star Road thing, and then like Yoshi, like you find Yoshi right away, pretty much, and you're like, man, that's super awesome. I've got this dinosaur that I punch in the back of the head to make him spit his tongue out, and then you find Star Road, and there's like colored Yoshis, and they all have different things that they do, and it's all about the blue Yoshi, of course, because he can fly. But
Right. But that was a surprising thing. Is not only is Yoshi awesome, but he also has all these crazy awesome powers that he gets when he sucks up certain colored Koopas.
Right.
It's just there's always something new to discover in this
yeah,
game.
absolutely.
It's incredible.
It's the best Mario game. It's beautiful. It's bursting with imagination in every single way.
Yeah.
And
Right. And it does give you a way to connect the levels and the worlds together more so than Mario 3.
Definitely. And you can go back, you can backtrack, which is nice. And there was a save system for the first time in a Mario game, which was really convenient. Because
let's be honest, Mario 3 probably could have used.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's super boss. It's just, I mean, it's a Mario game. And I, honestly, for my money, I know a lot of people, I don't know the makeup of the people that are in this particular podcast right now, but I know a lot of people think that Yoshi's Island is better. And I don't see it at all. I think Super Mario World is far superior to Yoshi's Island. So.
I agree with that, for sure.
I think it is in a lot of ways, but I mean, I don't. That's going to be high on my list, one of my first picks if I get it. But it has much better aesthetic, and it's the level design in Super Mario World is definitely better.
Which one has a better
like Mario
aesthetic?
World? Yoshi's Island does. Yeah,
it has a more
far,
unique one for sure because it's much more stylized.
Right.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, it's just, you can play Super Mario World as a traditional Mario game. You can run through the levels and play it like Mario 3, and it's an awesome, that style Mario game. And then you can go back and spend a lot of time exploring the levels, and it's awesome in that way too. So, I mean, it has a lot going for it, whereas I think that Yoshi's Island is really only built for you to spend a lot of time exploring. If you try to just play through those levels, then it's not as good. But
I've never beaten Mario World, but I'm playing through it now, and I don't know, I really like it, but at the same time, every time I turn it on, I'm like, I should buy Mario Brothers 3 from Virtual Console. So it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's really good, but like, you can have it.
For my money, the reason why I like Mario World better than Mario 3, there's a lot of great things about Mario 3, but what it comes down to for me is the cape. I think the cape is a super great way to get around levels. It's really fun to use. It takes, you can do it kind of basically, but you can also put a lot of finesse into it and make some cool maneuvers. And it also lets you just break the whole game wide open. If you ever decide you're sick of doing a level, just, go grab a feather somewhere and skip the damn thing.
Fly over it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it does. It takes considerably more skill than the raccoon tail. That makes it.
But it's
feel
not
a
as
lot better.
adorable.
It's not as adorable.
True.
No,
All right.
I guess not.
Negative.
So, that's the end of that. And now we're on to Mr. Eric Stephen Allen.
Oh, man.
You get to go twice, Mike.
Yeah,
Don't
you
worry
get-
Yeah, you
about
do
it.
get twice.
Mike.
Yep.
Fourth,
Yeah, you get to go
there's
twice in
something
a
left.
row.
the secret best position.
Oh, man.
Is that a metaphor?
Actually, that is always my favorite place to go in a
Yeah,
draft.
I agree.
Oh
And
man.
again, maybe I don't because I got
Do your worst, Eric. Come on.
All right, fine. I'm gonna take Chrono Trigger. I guess.
See, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was saying. Like, I couldn't not pick Zelda, but I'm like, damn it, dude, Chrono Trigger is not gonna fucking make it. I'm like,
Yep.
Yeah. It might have, but all the hate for I had intended on taking Yoshi's Island maybe with my first pick, but with all the hate, I think I might be able to get it
Look
later.
at that one
I'm
for a
not
little
sure.
while.
Yeah. But I mean, Chrono Trigger is my favorite Japanese RPG, and it certainly was, I would say, the game that had the greatest influence on the types of games that I was playing. 1995 when it came out. Like, I had played Final Fantasy VI and some of the earlier regular Nintendo RPGs, but Chrono Trigger really grabbed me, and it made me want to find other games that were like it, and I ended up playing a million Japanese RPGs.
Let's say, and then you didn't because there are no games that are like Chrono Trigger.
Right, that's what I was going to say, is that, I played a million of them on both the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation, and nothing else even came close. Like, I was never able to find something that was as much fun as Chrono
Was it
Trigger
the first Japanese RPG you played?
Huh? No, I played Final Fantasy VI and Secret of Mana, and there was some regular Nintendo. I played, like, Dragon Warrior in the original Final Fantasy, but it was the first one that really
grabbed me.
it was so great, and it's like, there's got to be some other games like this, and there just isn't.
No.
Unfortunately.
well, it's like it was made by a dream team of JRPG developers. I mean, it's got like it looks great. It's got a fantastic music, and it's got a like serious but kind of silly, doesn't take itself too seriously story.
Just
So, I
the
mean,
right amount of
it's-
seriousness to the story. Yeah, it's
Right,
it's a
exactly.
fun adventure, but it's not
Right.
like really heady and
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I think one of the sort of happy aspects of the 16-bit era is that everything hasn't quite ossified so much into this is what this kind of game is supposed to be. And so you had people that were able to do things that were less conventional, for lack of a better word, in the way that, like, well, this is how a game like this is supposed to go, and if you deviate from that, everybody, turns their nose about it or whatever. They're still sort of working out what those things are.
Right, and I think, but the stupid thing about Chrono Trigger and the thing that drives me crazy about all those later RPGs is that almost nobody looked at the game and said, "Oh, we should steal all of this stuff." Like the the way the characters moved around and the way that you could combine them to do double and triple techniques, and the way that enemies are visible on the screen. I mean, that was a total revelation for me for a Japanese RPG at the time, and it's still something that should have become the standard, that all games should have had that. There should have not have been the random encounters anymore. And yet there's still games that are being released today that are, random invisible enemies that you just happen to bump into and go into a battle even when you don't want to. And I could never figure out why they didn't adopt that for the Final Fantasy series and for, pretty much everything. But I guess that might be one of the reasons why I still love the game so much, is that because nobody else adopted it, it's still unique.
My secret shame is that I've only played the PlayStation version.
Wow.
Which is garbage, by the way.
$8 will get you the official canon Virtual Console Super Nintendo version, which is the best version of that game to play.
I actually inherited a copy of the Super Nintendo version from my cousins in the game Exodus that we discussed when we were all playing Secret of Mana. So I have a cart. I just need to get around to playing it.
Or the DS
version.
It's
not that long.
You
should play it. You should make that a priority.
Oh God, yes, and it's only like 30 hours long.
Which is like the
perfect
hello,
why isn't
for RPGs.
Yeah.
They don't need to be longer than that.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger and the first Suikoden
are
the only two games that I can think of that really hit that sweet spot.
The first Mass Effect.
In terms of
I was
length.
going to say Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2 as well.
Yeah, but those aren't Japanese.
No, but it's a role-playing game that's around 30 hours long.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Chrono Trigger is sweet. It is
very sweet.
So I'm up
pretty.
next. I figured that much out, Professor. So Eric, I'm glad you picked Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger would have been in my top 5 if I could have just rattled off my top 5 games. But but the one thing that I really, really needed to have more than anything else, except maybe Super Mario World, is Final Fantasy III. The other side of the JRPG coin.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Final Fantasy III is the one Super Nintendo game that I would miss the most if I could no longer play the Super Nintendo. It's my platonic ideal of the Japanese role-playing game, and it's probably the game that I've spent the most hours playing in my life, just because I kind of go back to it every 3 or 4 years and play the whole thing through and find every secret. I've kind of given up on learning every spell with every character. I used to do that when I was younger, but life's kind of short for that.
The thing I would always do is that I would not go into the final dungeon until everyone was level 70 or higher. So, yeah.
And you'd go up and the fight with Kefka would last for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, because I'd get Edgar to 99, Atma weapon offering, all that good stuff. He'd just kill him like 2 seconds. I don't know why. Oh yeah, there's a million ways.
There's a lot of fun.
So Chrono
ways
Trigger is
that.
a super amazing Japanese role-playing game, but the reason I like Final Fantasy III better for me is that I think I really love the characters in that game. I'm much more attached to them than I am to the ones in Chrono Trigger. I think Chrono Trigger has a great world and awesome soundtrack and fun mechanics, but I find the characters in Final Fantasy III super endearing, and then of course the music, possibly the best soundtrack on the Super Nintendo. I'm not sure.
I'd say it's
aside from
toss-up.
Chrono Trigger,
it's a tough one.
Yeah.
And then of course the fact that it's kind of like Legend of Zelda, in that you get halfway through the game and you're like, wow, this must be the end, and then bam, they drop this huge world of ruin on you, and especially when you're a teenager playing it for the first time, you're just like, fuck.
That's something that I love, is that because games don't do that. Games don't let the bad guy win, but the bad guy destroys the world halfway through the game. It's like, shit, dude, that sucks.
Like the Empire Strikes Back of Japanese role-playing games.
And it's not just any bad guy. It's fucking Kefka.
Has there ever been a better RPG villain
that is
Kefka?
the one thing I will say that no. I love Chrono Trigger, but that game lacks a definitive villain, and Final Fantasy,
Lava
right?
Porcupine.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Kefka's great because he starts off as this ridiculous, stupid caricature, and you don't take him seriously at all. And then you get to the scene where he just starts killing dudes. You're like, what? Okay.
He's right. They're in a standoff outside of a castle, and he poisons their water supply and kills the whole village.
Yeah, there's that.
I mean, that is the most fucked up thing I'd ever seen in a video game to that point in my life.
And when you get to the climax of the World of Balance, where he like stabs the Emperor in the back, throws him off of a floating continent, and then proceeds to destroy the world, you're like, okay, guess the silly clown guy wasn't so nice after all.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I really like about that is that especially games nowadays, they like to humanize the villains. They like to be like, well, he's evil, but because blah, 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 because, his mom didn't love him or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. But Kefka's just like, I'm just a douche. It's like,
he's
okay.
insane. I mean, that's...
Yeah, he's just crazy. I'm like, all right, dude, I am on board. I want to kill this crazy asshole. Like, I'm down with that.
They give him a reason to be crazy, but they don't really put it in your face a lot. He was a failed Magitech experiment. Whatever. He was like Celeste, but he got screwed up, and then he went crazy. But yeah, he's just like a totally deranged dude who wants to kill everything.
He's Sephiroth, only fucking awesome.
Yeah, and a clown.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was actually going to say when you started the discussion of is there a better JRPG villain, any of our listeners who are like, under like 20 years old probably are all freaking out and be like, no, Sephiroth!
No, they aren't.
Sephiroth has no character, no personality. He's just
I didn't say Sephiroth.
Just like a pretty anime guy for you to fight. He's got a cool sword.
But he's so kawaii.
Shut up, Alex. You gotta read my fanfic where he falls in love with Cloud. It really fleshes out his character.
Slash.
Let's not waste my 4 minutes of Final Fantasy 3 talking about your fanfic.
Well, we can take that 15-second back and give it to you.
We've already expired her.
Have we? I say we got 15 seconds left.
I just want to say
give him 15 seconds.
Blitzes.
Oh man, Blitz! Yeah, other awesome things: blitzes, the tools, chainsaw,
Shadow,
the offering, Edgy Glove.
Yeah.
Suplexing
Dragon boots, Dragon boots, Dragon horn.
Fucking suplexing a train. Yeah.
Mog dancing all the fucking time. Whenever I have Mog in my party, that motherfucker is dancing.
Anybody but Realm and Strago because they're lame.
Mm-hmm.
They are lame.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's it. Good job, Final Fantasy 3. You're awesome.
That's
Best
true.
game.
And for your second pick.
Well, now we've knocked out all of my A-list games. Chrono Trigger, Super Mario World, and Final Fantasy 3. So I got to dip into my second tier of still really awesome Super Nintendo games. And I think that the best way to choose one is to pick the one that'll make the most people mad. That's how you know you got something good in your hands. So I think the best I can do at this point is Mega Man X.
You're such a dick.
Fucking dick. How's that your B tier?
Yeah, how is that on your B tier? That was going to be my number one pick if I hadn't had the option to take Super Mario World.
Well, there are 3 games that I would take over any other Super Nintendo game, and they're the last 3 we just named. Everything else comes after them, but it's still totally sweet, like Mega Man X, the completely realized and amazing sequel to basically, I want to say to Mega Man 3, basically. It's like Mega Man 2, super great, Mega Man 3, super awesome with just more stuff, and then Mega Man X, they were like, oh, you thought we were serious before?
Mm-hmm. Those are the definitive Mega Man games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best Mega Man.
Yes.
2, 3, and X, you're basically done. But, I mean, X, as we all know, is the 16-bitifying of the series. They made it look amazing, they made it sound pretty cool, although I actually kind of like the soundtracks better before. They made the boss monsters, like, really interesting to fight, the Reploids that you have to take on. They're huge, they're colorful, they have interesting patterns. When you beat them, it does crazy things to the stages, like of the other Reploids. Mm-hmm. There are cool hidden items all over the game, but, contrary to some of the later Mega Man X games, not so many that you have to spend your whole life backtracking and going into stages over and over again just to find them all. If you do an efficient pass of Mega Man X, I think you have to revisit one stage, maybe not even that if you manage to get the heart.
You have to.
I don't know.
You have to revisit Armadillo stage several times. Yeah. Because why wouldn't you want to be able to throw fireballs?
It has the Hadouken.
Yes.
Dr. Light wearing a gi and a headband.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And the one bubble bat in that stage.
Yep, and it always gives you a 1-up. It gives you a 1-up every time you kill it.
Well, not every time, but it does have a very high drop rate.
It has like a Mega Man 2 drop rate of 1-ups, which is really high.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be my next pick.
That was going to be my next pick too. So Mike done fucked us all.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yep. But
you son of a bitch.
I will say that I think it's insulting that Capcom released Mega Man 6 and 7 after Mega Man X. And maybe even Mega Man 5? Someone had to fact check me on that. But at least 6 and 7 came out after X, and I was like, this is going back in like the worst way. Like,
Right.
why would you even bother now that you put out X?
I can understand them trying with 7, but 6 is just weird.
Well, because it was a Nintendo game. I mean, you couldn't emulate the experience of playing Mega Man X on a regular Nintendo, so they just tossed out another Mega Man game, basically.
We sort of glossed over the whole thing, which in my view makes Mega Man X, makes the X series infinitely superior to the regular series, which is that the fucking dash button is amazing. Because the game just and dash and wall jumping just changes everything. It makes the game so much faster and so much just more fluid, and boss fights become more creative. And
yeah, actually, you're right about that. It makes it really fun to fight the bosses because you're constantly flying all over the place, jumping over them, dashing underneath them. Especially the early Mega Man games, the boss fights I find really clunky. The way you can just run and jump.
I can't really play the old, ever since I played Mega Man X, I can't really go back and play the old Mega Man games.
Not even the ones with the slide?
The
slide helps a lot.
It helps, but it's not the same. It's not the Mega Man X slide, which is you can slide into a crazy-ass jump and gain hella momentum, That's way better than do the stupid breakdance slide. I don't like that. It's not good. You can't do anything out of that. You're just breakdancing. You're like, ow! And then that's it.
You can jump at the end.
Yeah, but it's just not the same.
The dash does allow for far more complex boss battles. I mean, almost all the bosses in Mega Man X are pretty awesome, at least... and they're more memorable, I think, than a lot of the Mega Man 2 and 3 ones, even though the designs maybe aren't as good.
It's also cool the way the weapons can all be powered up, and some of the secondary effects they give you are really cool, like the chameleon's powered up shot makes you invincible for a short time, so you can use it to get through annoying parts. Or
the only thing I don't like is the huge jump in the difficulty curve that comes from you play through the whole game, and then Sigma is a fucking pain in the ass.
It's funny, last time I played there, I didn't...
He's much more difficult than everything else in the game.
Yeah, but he's the final boss. I mean, when has the final boss of a Mega Man game not been hard?
I never really had it
Mega
too
Man
much.
3?
Right, 2, 3. I don't know.
I've never beaten 3.
2 was kind of hard. 3 is easy. You can top spin it like one hit.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sigma was a stone wall for me for a long time. I couldn't get through. I didn't finish Mega Man X until many years after I originally purchased it.
I will agree with that. That is true. He's a brick wall for sure.
My memories agree with you. But when I played it last time, I actually had a very easy time beating him, so I don't know.
Yeah. The last time I played it was when Maverick Hunter X came out on PSP, and I beat him no problem.
Yeah, they made him easy in that, though. He's
Did they?
hard.
Okay.
Yeah, he's easier in that.
All right.
It's been a long time since I played the original. Anyway.
All right, moving on. Now we have Eric's second pick.
Yeah, that means it's my turn, huh?
Yep.
That's why I said it was Eric's second pick.
Yes.
That's what that means.
Don't try to stall for extra time.
Yeah, well, I'm
Timer's
just...
running, you can stall all you want.
Ah, man, I don't know what I'm gonna pick. I guess I'll take Super Metroid.
Alright.
I'm kind
The
of surprised.
galaxy is at peace.
I'm surprised it took that long, to be perfectly honest.
I
was-
think
I
so.
I've also
I thought
played
that
this.
was going to go first round for sure. I didn't
Yeah,
think.
me
That's
too.
why I didn't even put it on my list, because I was like, someone's going to take that right away. But
Yeah.
I admire Super Metroid a lot, like one of those bands that you know you should like, but you don't.
that's
Actually,
how I
do
feel about
Like
it.
radio?
I do like it, but I don't love it. The way.
That's the perfect comparison.
I appreciate what they've done for the medium.
Yeah, I'm with Mike 100%. I'm playing through it now, and I really, really like it. But in a world where I played Symphony of the Night, I can't love it. Like, it's just not, like, I don't know. I feel like my biggest problem with that game is that I feel like a lot of the way you move forward and explore and find things is you just shoot walls randomly and just hope that shit blows up and then a path opens up.
Well, there's a little bit of that.
I don't know. That's just my biggest gripe with that game. It's fun, though. I like it.
But it does a lot of things really well, such as...
Yeah, Eric,
Such as, the atmosphere. First of all, any game that's heavily inspired by aliens gets a lot of bonus points with me, since Alien and Aliens are a couple of my favorite movies. I love the atmosphere in those movies, and so Metroid is just... I wanted to play it just because it looked like Alien. And I think that the thing that Super Metroid does better than almost every game that's come after it is that it has the world in Super Metroid has a really great like contiguous feel to it. It feels like it's all part of this one giant underground system. And I like Symphony in the Night is great, but there's places where it just doesn't seem like the rooms don't line up properly. It's a weird setting and it jumps around quite a bit. But I think Metroid is just way more. It's just way more consistent in its vision from that standpoint. And like you said, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy ways you can break the game and all kinds of different things. Not that I've ever done that, but every time a new video pops up where somebody figures out how to shave 5 minutes off a speed run, I really appreciate it because it's just like, oh yeah, people are still figuring out new ways to play that game. However long, what has it been? 15 years after the fact?
Yeah. 17. Yeah, it's definitely a game that gets better the better you are at it. You know, once you learn the wall jump, we were saying before we started recording that it makes it really fun because you can go and do stuff out of order, and you feel like you're being a total badass. Cause like, oh, dude, I'm gonna go get this item that I'm not supposed to have, and then I'm gonna rock the faces of these enemies for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's weird. It is a little weird, I think, especially the first time you play it, in that Samus, the controls feel a little weird. Like the way she aims and everything is different than it doesn't control like Contra. Like I always wanted to. Yeah, it took me a little while to get used to it. I wanted to play it like Contra, but it wasn't Contra. But I think once you figure it out and once you really get a good handle on it, it has really awesome momentum. Mm-hmm. Like, you can run through guys and everything. You can kill everything pretty quickly. So you don't have to fuck around a lot in it, and I think that's really cool. You don't have to stop moving. But again, that comes on repeat playthroughs. The first time you play it, it's going to take you a while, and it's going to be a little pokey. But
yeah, when I first started playing it, like now, when I'm playing... it felt like the enemies moved like faster than Samus does, and that was just hard to hit them. Everything just felt kind of weird and off. But now, as I've got like a few more upgrades and I got better beams and better, like now it's like all sort of starting to come together, and it's not as. So even when I fight like these crazy jumping things that I had trouble with before, now I'm like, oh, it's you guys, like bam, bam, you're dead. So even
right.
just
well, you're getting better at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's just. So I understand, like, yeah. So it's just initially kind of like, this is weird, but after you spend some time with it, and yeah, I think
it's unique in that not only is the character getting better, but you're getting better as you go through, and not just by a little bit, but by a lot. Like usually it's one way or the other. Like usually either your character is getting better and the game gets easier because of that, or you're stuck with the tools that you're given at the beginning. And I think this game really balances those two things really well. So it's an excellent game.
I think one of the strongest things about it is the depth of mechanics that there are there, but which are initially quite hidden to the player. Like, if you show up and you don't have any upgrades and you know the game very well, there's a lot of stuff you can do pretty early on. As soon as you get bombs, you can bomb jump, you can do wall jumping, and as soon as you have the dash boots, you can do all those crazy shine sparks and things like that. But they're really buried underneath the surface, and most of them you don't need to do at all to finish the game.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I remember watching like the attract mode when I was a kid, and just like being kind of like, "What? What was that? How do you? What?"
Yeah, that's how I found out about Shine Spark, whatever it's called. I went to the bathroom when I came back. Like, I was like, "Wait, how did she do that crazy jump?" And then I just experimented. And, yeah. Well, I had the dash thing at that point. I was like, "Wait, she was dashing," and then, wait a minute. So,
and back in an era when the internet didn't really exist when the game first came out, and you couldn't just go on GameFAQs and look up all the moves, it was kind of amazing when you first pulled off like a diagonal shine spark, and you're like, "Holy shit! I just flew up, like 17 screens into the sky and broke through a wall."
Well, like I was saying before we started recording, I did the crazy wall jump thing to break the game and get the wave beam a little early, and I felt like a champ. I was like, "Yeah!" Like I literally put my hands up in the air and started like pumping my fists, and I was like. Threw the controller down on the ground.
Literally?
Yeah, literally. Nice. That's what I did. Seriously. For real.
All right, moving on. Joe. Your second pick.
All right. I'm getting it this time. I'm choosing to attack aggressively. Contra 3.
Why am I not surprised?
I'm okay with that because I do not like.
That game's pretty good, but it's way too fucking hard.
It's pretty damn hard.
Or maybe y'all are just bitches. Have you considered that?
That's probably true. Yeah. It's a little column A, little column B.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say this: it is not. It's my second favorite Contra, probably.
Behind Contra.
For the NES, of course.
Good man.
As we discussed on our last draft last year, arcade Contra shouldn't even be discussed. Because arcade Contra is balls.
We will not speak of this.
Yeah, and arcade Super C is less balls, but not as good as NES Super C, and NES Super C still not as good as Contra 3, which is awesome. I don't know, man. Contra 3, like, even the Mode 7 levels, which are not as cool as the, like, base levels in Contra, they're like a nice change-up. You can split up from your partner, which is kind of cool if you're playing 2 players. The flamethrower is awesome. You can hold 2 guns.
Oh, flamethrower is so awesome.
Flamethrower is so... Nothing... I'm sorry,
and don't forget the ultimate pose of manliness.
I was just gonna say, everybody with a fucking plane flies down and everybody stands on that thing with both their guns out, like in the ultimate manliness, and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah. You know, default with a machine gun, which is cool because you feel like you're not so helpless. I feel like, you know, if you lose. Plus, you can keep two weapons. So if you lose a life, you only lose the weapon that you have equipped at that moment. So that really makes a difference as well.
Which is really important because, like I said, this game is really fucking hard.
Yeah, it's the hardest level. Honestly, I think the hardest level isn't even the final level. It's the last top-down level, and it's that boss who spins the level like in the ground you're on while you're trying to kill it. That's like the part that I've always had the most trouble with. But, I mean, I can beat the game on hard without continuing, so...
They had to show off that Mode 7 shit, baby.
It's a total show-off game for the Super Nintendo. There's so much Mode 7 in that game, it's not even funny. But it looks good, you know, and, it's big and ballsy, and what else do you want out of a Contra game?
Absolutely. And then you fight a giant Terminator who, like, rips through that part was so... like, you fight these 2 big, like, Terminators, right? And you kill them both, and, like, if you shoot out their legs first, they, like, crawl around in the ground and, like, freak out and try to kill you. And you kill them, and it's, like, really intense the first time you do it, and you're like, oh, alright, I'm good. And then the music changes, and you're like... What? That's not the Contra victory. That's not like the like that's something different. And then like these giant robot hands rip through the fucking wall and just tear the wall open, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's on now. Yeah. I like that, and I just love the way the first level develops. Like it starts out, it's like, oh, this is kind of like Super C, and then the further you get in, the less and less it is. And then there's the upgraded fire, the upgraded flamethrower, and then there's the parts with the tank, and then they blow the whole level up, and you're jumping over those napalm pits. I mean that stuff's awesome. And then there's that giant turtle thing that comes out at the end.
Did that flamethrower ever come back? Because that was by far the best Contra flamethrower.
Kind of. In Shattered Soldier, you have, like, it doesn't go quite as far, but it's similar. In fact, there's even a part in Shattered Soldier where you do the, like, climbing on the bars, and the little freaky, like, mosquito aliens come and pick you up, and you have to flamethrower them, and they drop...
my favorite part.
Really? I was just gonna say, that's my favorite stage. That's the same stage that has the giant Terminator that comes through the wall. Like, that's stage 3 of Contra 3, and that's, like, one of my favorite Contra stages.
God, it has the mini-boss with the spinning bar.
Yeah, it spins, you climb the wall. Yeah,
and if you kill him when you're underneath, you just die, because he falls off the screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man, that's the first time I ever beat that guy. That was my last life, and that's what happened to me. Yep, and I had to, continue and do it all over again. Yep.
And, Konami really knocked it out of the park with their early Super Nintendo stuff, because they released this and Super Castlevania 4, like, in the same very close time frame, and they were rocking and rolling right out of the gate.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the Super Nintendo is weird in that it had, I think, by far the best early lineup of any system that has ever come out. I mean, it's like Super Mario World was early, and Contra 3, and Super Castlevania, and I think Mega Man X was like the next year. It's just like, that's a killer lineup for the first year of the system's life. And, I mean, we've already drafted like half of those games, and like if we did an Xbox 360, if we did like an Xbox, yeah, that was like 93 or 94. If we did an Xbox 360 draft or something like that, nothing that came out in the first 2 years would be drafted.
Nope. Nope.
So
cameo elements of power.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving on. Back to Mr. Rio.
You may have noticed I was quiet during Contra 3, and that's because I don't like Contra. And,
were you excited that something you don't like got picked?
Yeah, I'm excited that somebody basically took that's one of the games that, like, I couldn't care less about. So
it's like a free round for you.
Free round, yeah, which is good because you guys took my JRPGs, so I gotta take the one that's really left, the one best one that's really left. I can't have Final Fantasy
Curious
3,
what this is.
but I can have Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 4, whatever you want to call it.
You spoony. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Super Nintendo, so I guess we're going
That,
with
the
Final
Super
Fantasy.
Nintendo,
But yeah,
so yeah.
I like 6 more, but 4 is still really, really good. Kind of.
It's like
It's
baby.
my
it's
favorite
like baby
Final Fantasy. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I like it more than 3.
It's really silly. Is kind of one of the things I like about it. Like, almost all the major characters nobly sacrifice themselves at one point in the game to the point where, yeah, it's exactly.
Yang nobly
Sometimes more than
sacrificed
once.
multiple times.
At least
Yeah,
twice.
exactly. To
Kind
the
of
point
takes
where
the sacrifice out of it.
to the point where it's just kind of a joke. It's like I feel like all my companions in
Well,
that
they
game are
didn't
like
know
red
it, though.
shirts in Star Trek. You know, I mean, it's just kind of silly and it's just really it's a silly game. It takes itself a little too seriously, but I mean, it's got that Final Fantasy crunch to it. You know, you got equipment, you go through dungeons. It's got great music. I mean, it looks a little bad. It still kind of has they have the old like NES size sprites going on, but I don't know. That fucking door you fight, fuck that thing.
Over and over again, might I add. I
Yeah,
think
it's
what
true.
you need to remember with Final Fantasy II, especially for our younger listeners, is that when it came out, it was unbelievable. It was so much more advanced than any NES level role playing game that anyone had ever seen. That even with its stupid like puppet show parody, storyline with little characters spinning and jumping around, it had a storyline with characters
that's true.
that developed over the game. And it had, it had squat little sprites, but it was really colorful. The soundtrack was awesome.
Yes, it is.
It was a major step up, and I remember when I guess I was like 13 when I played it for the first time, and it blew my mind how much better it was than any other any other role playing game I'd ever played on a console, and even on the PC. The PC role playing games were deeper at that point, but they weren't as colorful and as immediately engaging, and they didn't have stories that would play themselves out right in front of you that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, that's another of, like we talked about, the killer lineup of early Super Nintendo games. Not only are they great games, but they just really showed that this is a new generation of video games. This is something different. These are games that you could not have had before 1991, before you get a Super
Right, it's
Nintendo.
not just the same thing, but more shiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it for me at least, like, I mean, again, we didn't know that there were 2 Final Fantasies we missed out.
Yeah, what a jump from Final Fantasy 1. Holy crap.
And ignorance
Yeah.
is bliss.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
they say.
Right. Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, because they're balls anyways. Especially 2 is fucking terrible. But when you to see that as a kid, like, I mean, I was 9 or 10 years old when this came out. Like 9. I was 9 because this came out in the U.S. in '92, I believe. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
I was like, holy shit, like, this is, and I'd played Final Fantasy 1, but I was like, it was such an advance, and like, this story is melodramatic as fuck, but I was 9, like, and that's, that's why I fucking really dug
I still
it.
think the characters are kind of cool. They're memorable in their own way.
Well, they're kind of anime tropes, but when had you ever seen that
Yeah.
before? Like, coming off of the
Right.
NES, a game story was like 1 page of texts,
Yeah,
given to you
it's
3
true.
lines at a time over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And here you have like the early arc in Final Fantasy II where Cecil goes through his redemption. That was really cool. You start out as the Dark Knight. Also awesome that you start out as a powerful character that people are afraid of, as opposed to like a level 1 loser.
Yeah.
And then your guy, he gets betrayed and he feels bad, and then he goes and he redeems himself and he comes back to fight his former. It's pretty impressive, at least
Also-
historically speaking.
Also, even though it's silly and dumb, Kane is awesome. I
Kane
love
is
him.
awesome.
He is fucking sick. Like, even though, he betrays them, like, what, 9 times? 30 times? I lost track. But it doesn't matter. He's still a total badass. So,
Yeah, he is.
yeah.
He can jump.
He can jump, dude. That's why I learned about jumping. I was like, holy shit. Incidentally, if you guys play the Final Fantasy 4 Advanced thing that's out there, there's, like, additional scenarios you can play, and Kane's is awesome. Just saying. But,
Okay.
yeah. That game... Well, never mind. Are we out of time? How much time we
Yeah,
got?
out of time.
Alright, fuck it.
All right, next
Okay, now
pick.
this one is hard, because there's 2 platformers I want, and I know one of them's not going to make it, so I think I got to take it. But
There's something you want more?
there's something I kind of want more, but I think it's going to last, so I think I'm going to pass.
Oh, the
So I'm gonna
strategy
take
of the
the
draft.
one. Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going to go with one that I know is not going to make it. Super Mario All-Stars.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid choice.
It's the best value pick.
Well, you know what?
of any
This
of the
pick
games
is
that
worth
we've
3
selected.
in the last draft. I mean, that's,
Right.
you know, what else can you... 3.5, really, if you want to get technical, although I don't hate myself, so...
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
The thing that bugs me when I played a little bit of the Mario All-Star stuff was just the way that they changed all the sprites and everything. Just like, I'd played so much of the original games that it just all looked weird to me. Just like, these are just all wrong.
I don't disagree with you, but if we're keeping up the whole like desert island thing, where like I'm only gonna have these games to play forever.
Oh yeah, I definitely think it's worth it.
Damn good choice.
So,
yeah, it's a pretty good choice. Like any version of Mario Brothers 3 is better than none.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, those are my preferred versions. I differ with Kurt on that. Even though I grew up with the 8-bit ones, I prefer to play the All-Stars versions.
I agree for Mario 2 and 3.
I don't, because I like the progression of the sprites. I like the fact that Mario 1, 2, and 3 all have really different looks. And they're kind of homogenized a little bit in Mario All-Stars.
Actually, the fucked up thing is that Mario 1 and Lost Levels benefit by far the most from the... Like, because the really, like... They just kind of... Like, especially with Mario 3, it seems like they just really added more colors. Like...
Yeah, but I think that game needed more colors.
I mean, right, but I don't think like they redrew everything for 1 and Lost Levels, and then they just kind of like made it look crisper for 2 and 3.
I think 2 and 3 are both games that had really good art direction and that kind of suffered from the lack of colors you get in the NES. I think that those games really pop when you put them in 16 bits and you give the sprites basically as many colors as you need to properly differentiate them.
Yeah, I'll go with that. But I think what's really cool about Super Mario 2 on the NES is that they made each character, like all the 4 that you can choose, are actually 2 sprites layered on top of each other to give them the extra detail, which is why they look so good. And that's kind of lost a little bit in the All-Stars version. Still my preferred version, though. But, yeah. Just saying.
I'm gonna attempt to defend Lost Levels briefly, which is that.
Good luck.
Yeah, this is a half-hearted attempt, so don't push me on it because I cannot fight back.
Quixotic nature of this.
But I think Lost Levels is interesting. I've never really played it extensively, but I think it's interesting from a historical standpoint that it exists and that it was released in some form in America. You know, I think that's just kind of neat. I don't think it's fun necessarily, but if I can only have 5 Super Nintendo games, like, I can hold on to this and say, hey, this is culturally and historically important, and I have it. And that's neat.
Yeah.
I guess.
That was definitely a big carrot to get me to buy it back in the day. Because I was like,
right.
It's a Mario game I never played! And then I was like, oh, and it sucks balls.
Oh, wait, it's a Mario game I never wanted to play!
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But now you get to play the real Mario Brothers 2, and I mean, that's something. I don't know if it's good, but it's something. It is something.
Yeah, when you get to the first warp zone that warps you backwards, that's... fuck that. That's when I turn it off. I'm like, fuck you, game.
The Mario game that hates you.
Yeah.
The other big addition is that it gives you a save for Mario 3, which I think is pretty important, because I remember trying to finish Mario 3 when I was a kid with my friend, and I want to do every level in the game, and that takes like 4 or 5 hours, and he'd never have the patience for it. And so this way I could finally just, fuck it, we'll play the damn game, do every level. Plus you can abuse the save feature to go back and get like a whole bunch of hammer suits or extra P-Wings.
And that's
cool
that's
like
something
that.
I do in Super Mario World and like new Super Mario Bros. And stuff like that. If I'm ever having trouble, I'm like, fuck it, I'll go back to an old stage and then just leave with power-ups, you know what I mean? Or farm it for extra lives. That's something that I've picked up as a jaded old man who plays video games. I grind in Mario now. I'm terrible. But, yeah, I don't remember. I was going somewhere with that, but I lost it.
But that's
Whatever.
the price for an
Mario's
inventory
great.
full of Tanuki suits. It's not
Yeah.
too high to pay.
Nothing wrong with that.
True.
But
All right,
yeah.
moving on. Back to Mr. Drilling. Pick
fuck.
number 3.
Fuck. Here's the thing. 3 of my top 5 of, my initial list of, I guess top 6 is still available, and I don't know what order to pick them in because I'm trying to discern which one.
I want
your
to know
assets.
what 3 of your top 5 are, because like my top, it's all gone. I mean, I've got B tiers.
I don't like RPGs, Holmes.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Well,
I guess I'm gonna go with the order that I think I initially. Fuck. How much time do I have?
You got like 2 seconds
God
left.
damn it! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4.
Technodrome. Let's kick shout.
fuck
Okay.
you. God damn it! That was one of the.
I was hoping that would drop and
Yeah,
I could snatch it up
Exactly,
at the end.
me too. I was like, that'll be a good 4th or 5th, but no, whatever.
It's the best Super Nintendo beat 'em up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree.
And I think we all know how I feel about beat 'em ups.
Although I will
You
say
like
this,
them.
I am
of a
disappointed in
fan.
you because the way you should have introduced the pick is, what time is it? It's pizza time.
Cowabunga!
Exactly.
Shell
Because
shot.
that's how I would have done it, and that's infinitely superior to fuck.
Well,
So I
was
think
trying to
one
decide.
big strike against Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo's, you can only have 2 players, can't you?
That's true, but one big strike against the arcade version, and especially the fucking awful Xbox Live version, is that it has extra stages, extra bosses, and amazing Super Nintendo sound chip music, and it's awesome.
It is. That game was a lot of. My friends and I used to fight over who got to be who, because nobody ever wanted to be Raphael or Michelangelo. So we're all like, "I'm Donatello." No, I am. Fuck you. Like,
No, I actually. So my roommate and I played through about half of it last night. We were waiting for another friend of ours to come over to do some shit we had plans to do. And I was talking about how I always pick Raphael, even though I know he's not as good as Leonardo or Donatello, but because Raphael's my favorite Ninja Turtle. So I don't
That's-
give a fuck if he's not as good, I still pick
He's
him.
cool but rude.
Exactly.
that's
I liked Michelangelo because he's a party dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Raphael. Obviously, this shouldn't surprise anyone, given that I'm a dick. But Raphael's my favorite. But I feel like his weapon is the worst. Like, not just in
It
this
is
game,
the worst.
just
It's
period.
unequivocally the worst. It's not
Yeah,
even a
I'm
weapon.
Yeah, it's a
I know.
defensive, like, it's like
For
a
blocking
back-
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, and Donatello was my second favorite. So when I was playing this game, I'd always be like, well, Donatello's got to like reach. So like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna play as Donatello. So I'd always want to be him, but we'd always fight over it. No one, like I said, no one ever wanted to be Raphael because why would you ever want to play as Raphael?
Yeah. And last night I was, because he's
Well, he did. Raphael does have a cool. His special attack is pretty awesome. The drill kick thing that he does.
Yeah, that's true.
That's pretty good.
But I'm surprised at how quickly I can just go right back to throwing dudes at the screen and like slamming them back and forth.
That's the best
And-
thing.
Yeah, it totally is. And you always have to fuck with the options. Like I always go into the options menu because one, your special defaults to Y and B instead of just the X button, which is dumb. The back attack defaults to off, which is also dumb. And the dash defaults to auto, which is less dumb, but if you put the manual dash on, then you can shoulder check foot soldiers, like, at will. And if you play on hard to get the good ending, you have to shoulder check the fuckers who have those blocks on their arms when you're fighting Shredder the first time. And so you really need to have the manual dash. So you can shoulder check.
I didn't know there was a good ending.
Yeah, there's a better ending. The ending is different if you beat it on hard, but
I actually
it's
didn't know that either.
harder. Yeah. So
I played, the most recent time I played it was a friend of mine bought the awful Xbox Live version for whatever reason.
yeah, I bought
It
it
was on
too.
sale or something, and he's like, hey, let's play it. And I was like, okay, this will be fun. And it was not.
I played it from
Not buy
beginning
it.
to end one time, and I've never touched it again.
Yeah, that's the appropriate thing to do.
I think I bought it when it was on sale, but I don't think I've ever played it.
fucking
That's
terrible.
another. Well, actually, not playing it is the appropriate thing to do.
The better use of your money than
was
playing
not.
it.
Yeah, it's true.
Buying it and not
It's true,
playing it. It's
actually.
slightly above buying it and playing
I
it.
just don't get why they would. I don't get why they would release like the faithful version of the first Ninja Turtles arcade game, and then like shit out this like hideous 3D like thing without. And if they went to all that work,
You know what? I'm gonna guess because kids still kind of care about Ninja Turtles a little bit, and so
They did try to they rebooted the cartoon.
They had that
franchise
movie
a
not
few
too
years
long ago, and they
so-
figured probably
yeah.
kids would look at like an old sprite-based game and just be like, "What the fuck?"
Did any of you guys see that movie? That was supposed
I
to be
heard it
pretty
was
good.
good, but I've never
I
seen
heard it
it.
was good, but
Also, if you abbreviate Turtles in Time, it spells tit.
Whoa.
So, really quick before we wrap up, the last thing I want to say is I don't get about the reboot. If you're going to go to all the trouble to rebuild the arcade game in 3D and make it look shitty and make it play like ass, at least add in the extra stages from the Super Nintendo version and the extra bosses. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So that's my final word. But yeah, best beat 'em up for the Super Nintendo, edging out Super Double Dragon for me, which was the other contender for that particular title. But this one is better.
I'm trying to think. Final Fight 3 and Spider-Man
Oh, yeah.
Venom Maximum Carnage are both also
Alright,
pretty
moving
good.
It's
on.
on my list. But anyway.
All right, Eric.
I'm gonna have to take Yoshi's Island.
Okay.
You do that.
Respect them.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys aren't too into it, but by far the best looking Super Nintendo game.
I love the art style.
Yeah, the art style is wonderful. The animation is incredible. I still can't believe, I just played it this weekend. I still have a hard time believing that it's a Super Nintendo game. It looks like something, when I played it in 95, it looked like something that had dropped like 5 years from the future. And it still kind of looks like that. The animations on Yoshi's face, like the expressions that he has when he's doing his little gravity-defying flap, like the way he closes his eyes and strains, and just the way his feet are all flopping around when he's running. And
If you
it's
could
just,
turn that stuff
everything
into
about that
vector
game
art
looks
and make it
amazing.
like release it in 1080p, you wouldn't have to change anything aside from that. Like it would still look beautiful. It would be one of the best looking 2D games released this year.
It actually is much better looking than Yoshi's Story, which is a fucking turd.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Yoshi's Story. We're talking about the good one.
Do that for
But,
the sad N64 drive.
Oh, the good one? Yoshi's Island DS? Wah, 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 wah.
What's
I've
the
actually
difference?
heard
I
that
don't even
game
know
kinda
what's
sucks.
different
I've
about
never
it.
played
Yeah, it's just like more Yoshi's Island, but mostly badly done. Has a really cool thing where if you have baby Princess Peach on your back, she has an umbrella and it catches air currents and you go shooting up from like the bottom to the top screen, which is pretty cool. But
That sounds
that's
pretty
about
cool.
the only
Yeah.
really good thing about it.
I talked about it when Joe picked Super Mario World, that it is kind of a shame that the level design isn't quite as good in Yoshi's Island. I mean, like I said then, is that you kind of have to take your time and you have to collect all this stuff, otherwise you miss most of the fun in the game, which is a kind of a shame because all the other Mario games are a little bit faster paced, or at least you can play them that way if you want to. And in this game, if you're not taking it all in, then you really miss a lot of the stuff. I love the boss designs. I still think that it has some of the best bosses in any game. I think Bashful Bert might be my favorite. He's a giant dude who you hit with eggs, and then every time you hit him, his pants drop down, and he gets redder and redder and redder until his pants fall off. So, I mean, it's just really incredibly imaginative things.
I have not beaten this game, but I think you have just convinced me to
Did
play
you
it.
need to?
To give it a shot.
Yeah.
You need to at least give it a shot. Yeah, there's another. I think it also has one of the coolest uses of Mode 7 stuff, is the Raphael and Raven battle, where you're on that world and the world is spinning. Yeah, and you have to drive the stakes into the Raven from the other side. Just really, really incredibly imaginative things. I love the world. I love the way it looks.
It's also the best use of the Super FX chip because it doesn't look like balls now.
Yeah, well, it's because there's very little of it, and everything they do doesn't really. It didn't need textures. I think, like a lot of the castle levels is where they drop those polygonal walls on you, but they're one of the few things that they. It's such a simple sprite that they're lined up with that you don't even notice.
They
that
don't
they're
look like
polygons
old,
until they
crappy
try and
3D.
drop on you.
It's almost like simple cell shading what they do with them.
Everything has eyes. Everything has big goofy eyes on it. All the platforms. There's the water platforms. It just everything has this great personality.
It's a real triumph
that I
of
really
art
love.
design.
Yep. Yeah, and also Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy. I mean, come on, man. It's the only Nintendo game that ever actively encouraged the use of acid, as far as I can tell.
They all kind of passively encourage that.
Yeah.
Just take it as given.
Yeah, this is the first time where you experience it from the developer's point of view, instead of just seeing the output.
Nice. All right, Mike.
Okay, so you gave me a hard time about this whole B tier game thing, but Well, I've been thinking about this because I have like 3 games, or 2, 3, and 4 games from this draft are my top favorite SNES games. But then I have like a dozen that are right underneath them as kind of my second tier. And at this point, I've got like 7 or 8 of them left, and I'm just gonna have to start picking at random. So I guess I'm going to surprise absolutely no one here and pick UN Squadron.
I almost stole that from you with my last pick.
Well, yeah, I would have been mad, but not that mad because I have so many other choices that I like a whole lot. But UN Squadron is one of my favorite shooters of all time, and I'm using that word especially just for Joe. Yep. One of my favorite shooters of all time.
Well, Kurt hates that word too. So.
Yeah, I hate that word too.
Okay.
Hey, so do I.
Fine,
so
fine.
It's
everyone.
It's an on the stick thing.
I don't.
Shooter.
I don't. Not everyone.
Shooter.
It's unanimous.
My word is
Thank
off
you.
the stick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes. It's a banned word, I believe.
Anyway.
You can say anything else, but you can't say that.
So the great things about UN Squadron are that, well, it's got really cool designs for the enemies that are kind of based on realistic technology, except when they aren't, which I think is awesome. You're fighting, realistic-looking planes, and then there's like a stealth bomber that comes along that's like 20 times bigger than it ever could possibly be, and these awesome like forest, the forest fortress and the giant land cruiser thing. I also love the fact that it has shopping, because I think that shopping makes video games more fun almost all the time.
I think you discussed that in our...
Yeah, I was going to say, I listened to the NES draft recently, and you said that about River City Ransom. And I agree with you. But I agree with you. Shopping, buying upgrades is awesome.
Yeah, and it gives you choices, you take the game on your terms a little bit. You're like, well, I've saved up some money, so which of these planes do I buy? Or do I make my life really hard for the next couple levels and stick with the crappy Crusader, and then save up to buy one of the really good ones later on? Or do I just get the A10 because it's fucking amazing?
This is my favorite U.S. released shooter for the Super Nintendo. That out there.
It's very specific praise,
I don't know that there's kind of like beat 'em ups. Well, it is kind of like beat 'em ups in that there's not a ton of good ones, so you're sort of limited. It's like this in Gradius 3 and R-Type's
Super R-Type is balls, but R-Type 3 is badass.
Okay, UN Squadron.
Well, whichever
Super
one.
awesome.
UN Squadron.
UN Squadron.
UN Squadron has great cheesy like 80s butt rock, but rendered through the Super Nintendo. It has like the Capcom electric guitar sound that I go on and on about, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
It has a super epic cinematic introduction, which I think is, that's a gravitas from the beginning. It's everything I like in a shooter. I think personally that it's not all that hard because I can finish it on the allotment of credits that they give me without cheating. So, I don't know, for me that makes it a not that hard shooter compared to a lot of the other ones that are out there.
Yeah, that fucking ceiling boss can eat a bag of dicks.
Well, he is kind of the brick wall right before the end of the game. Yeah, he is a bit of a jerk.
The only time I've broken a controller was playing UN Squadron, and it was that fucking ceiling boss that caused me to do it.
Oh man, you're gonna talk about breaking controllers. That's some stories for you. But UN Squadron is one of those games that I didn't actually get it until after the fact. I traded a kid in high school a copy of Aladdin for UN Squadron and Mario Kart, which I think, oh god, yeah, it's not even close. I mean, I just that was thievery basically. I strolled into that dude's house and walked out of there with 2 incredible games, and all I gave up was. And actually, Aladdin's a pretty good game, but it's not on the level.
It's all right. There'll be a video on the site about it by the time this podcast is up.
And we'll never ever get it on Virtual Console ever. It's based on an obscure Japanese manga.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Licensing
I didn't know that. That sucks.
Much like your last choice, Yoshi's Island, which will never get on Virtual Console, or Joe's last choice, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Alex's last choice, Super Mario All-Stars.
Right.
This is the sad portion of our podcast.
Yeah, this is the round that is exempt from Virtual Console.
Actually,
Untouchables.
Mike,
We can get Super Mario All-Stars for the Wii because they did that anniversary.
I have that to rip off.
Not on Virtual.
It's $30 poorly spent.
Agreed.
All right.
But Mike, your pick is actually available. I will say So there, to our listeners, the UN Squadron, you can get a used copy, like card only for like $4. So
I got mine for $2.
Yeah, see, there you go. The other
You
ones.
spend $4, you're getting ripped the fuck off.
That's right. But I bought local.
Awesome. That's good.
All right, next pick, Mike.
I've been agonizing over this for a while now.
Yes, the 13th pick and the
13th
second
pick.
annual.
I was going to pick one game that has gotten sequels, and I decided not to pick it in the end because there are some sequels to that series that I like better, to the point where I'd never go back and play the old game. So I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to pick a game, well, I guess technically it has a sequel, but come on. I'm going to pick Out of This World.
Oh.
You know,
Oh,
I'm not
nice.
surprised because you've expressed your love for that game and that series several times, but
That's true, but I am surprised because I forgot that was a game that existed. So,
Well, yeah, it existed on a lot of platforms too, and you could argue
Yeah.
that the Super Nintendo version is maybe the worst because
Yeah,
the
it's
Super
one of
Nintendo
them.
version is the most censored. Although they added music into the Super Nintendo version, so I don't know.
it's got that going on for it.
But they took out all the blood and they took out the butt cracks for the Super Nintendo version of the
that's
game.
really what hurt it.
More than anything.
But I didn't know that when I was 14 years old or something, and I rented Out of This World, and I was just mesmerized by that game. I was just drawn right into the world, and it's a side-scrolling action platformer type game, but where it feels like you're never doing the same thing twice. The game is quite short, but from beginning to end, it feels like you're always up to something new. They put you in new situations, they make you do different things. So I don't know, it feels much more creative than almost any other 2D platformer I've played. Even a game like Flashback, which is arguably a better game. Flashback comes down to an awful lot of shooting dudes and rolling around and stuff, whereas Out of This World, they've 1 minute you're shooting dudes, but another you're rolling around in steam vents, and then you're platforming, and then you're drowning, and then you're being impaled on spikes, and then you're being eaten by tentacle monsters. Then you're being
That's a hell of-
disintegrated, and then you're being crushed under rocks.
That's a hell of an argument to make. Like, I don't know if I was given my two favorite versions of those games, of Out of This World and Flashback. That's a hell of an argument to be like, which one of these is better? They're both really fucking good, and they both have a
They
similar
are.
weird art style.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to mention. The reason that I played it is because it has such a unique look. There's nothing else. There's really nothing even to this day that looks quite like it. So.
Well, it's all weird, blocky vector art viewed from the side.
Yep.
It's like a
Yeah, it's
PlayStation 1 game smushed down into 2D.
Yeah. Well, there was a PlayStation 1 sequel to Flashback, and it sucked ass. So
And Out of This World also, I think.
there was a Sega
Oh,
CD,
Sega CD,
or there was another.
yeah.
Well, it was like the Sega CD one was both. It was Out of This World and Heart of the Alien. I think Heart of the Alien was originally like an Amiga or whatever the fuck Out of This World
I
originally
don't
was.
see that. I don't see that sequel on Eric Chahi's list of things that he worked on.
It's
so.
Didn't work on
not.
it.
That's
Right.
why it kind of sucks ass.
Because he was too busy making Heart of Darkness, which is actually kind of awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. And Flashback is actually super awesome, and I like it maybe more than Out of This World, but I don't like the Super Nintendo version that much.
Yeah, the Super
It's
Nintendo-
way
that's-
slower than the PC version.
This is for
Have
sure
you,
the worst version.
There's those two games. They both have like kind of a weird control scheme where everything is really slow and deliberate. There's
Yeah.
another game called Black Throne and
Blackthorn.
Blackthorn.
Yeah.
That's
so
a
have you
Blizzard
played
game.
that? Do you, like,
Yes, I have. It looks like those games, but it doesn't play like them so much. It's a much more straightforward action game, I would say.
well, just like I've never been able to finish them because I don't like how slow they are.
It still has that, yeah, but it still has
I
that
think they're
weird,
really cool.
deliberate, yeah, like Prince of Persia almost style.
Well, it is. It's very
And-
Prince of Persia.
Yep.
All
And-
of these
and that's
games
what-
that we're talking about kind of have.
That's what drew me to them. Was I used to love Prince of Persia, and it's super slow, but at the same time, it's much more realistic than your average platformer. Like someone who is in really good shape could do pretty much everything that happens in Prince of Persia that doesn't involve magic. And it actually, Out of This World looks like those games, but it plays very differently. Flashback is like Prince of Persia on steroids. They have very similar control schemes. Out of This World, it's missing a lot of. It's not nearly as grid based as either of those games is. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's not super important. What's really important is the amazing art style, and I love how just muted the colors are everywhere you go. The whole world feels so oppressive because it's all just this like super dark blues and grays. And also, every single thing in the world wants you dead in the most unpleasant way possible. Like, even the stupid little black slugs at the beginning are total nightmare fuel. As they flip up and they have, like, this venomous claw and they dig into your shin and you just die on the spot.
Actually, those might be the scariest bad guys in the game, because they look so harmless, and then they just, oh, no, they have a giant spike that kills you.
No, I think that the black cat is the scariest. Like, if you get killed by it, you get like a cinema of it. Like, yeah, you just the red eyes and the mouth opening, and that was nightmare fuel for me as a 9-year-old or whatever the fuck. I was like, that's terrifying. Shit.
Now we're on to Eric.
Oh my. It is getting tough. Well, because there's 2 games that I didn't think would be left that I have on my top tier, but I was kind of hoping that I could get a couple of my bottom tier games here at the end.
I'll do it,
But,
or wait till your next round.
I think I'm going to take ActRaiser. It's a game that's totally unique to the Super Nintendo, and the way that it mixes, it's a side-scrolling platformer, and it's also this crazy macro, whatever. Yeah, it's city building. It's like SimCity, only you control a naked flying baby that shoots arrows. Yeah, so that's pretty awesome.
With arrows, yep.
And what's funny about it is that neither one of those halves is very good, but when you put them together, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the platforming is kind of slow and awkward. Like, there's a lot of hits that you just kind of can't get around in the game.
Yeah,
it kind of doesn't matter later on.
I played this when it came out on the Virtual Console, and that was the thing that sort of bugged me, was that the platforming was really ugly for me. I was just like, I can't figure out how to do this successfully.
My counter to that is that they give you an incredibly powerful weapon that has an ungodly range on it. Like, the way that he swings his sword gives you a big wall of death that extends from, like, the top of your head all the way down to your toes, almost.
Plus he says, oh.
So it takes it and makes the sort of the clunky jumping and the clunky, the sort of the slow speed that makes it difficult to dodge, and just, if you just run around and wave your sword at enemies, you can get through most of the side-scrolling stuff.
Mostly they get around it by giving you a shit ton of life.
Yeah,
so you can just kind of walk through almost every enemy after you've gained a few levels.
Yeah. I love all the changes they made for the US version, because you couldn't be God, and the enemy couldn't be the devil or Satan. You had to be Tanzra, and you had to be the master, and like, it's just stupid.
Hey, but they kept the naked
shit.
baby, so.
Yeah, they kept the butt. That's weird. They removed the butt cracks from Out of This World, but the naked baby's butt crack is still in ActRaiser.
Because he's a baby?
I guess.
That's like pedophilia butt crack.
It's a baby. It's not a young child. It's different. Baby, it's like a newborn, so it's okay.
It's not like sexualized.
Right.
Yeah.
In Out of This World, I don't recall it being...
It was bathing beauties, if you will.
Was it?
Yeah, you crash your escape pod into like a bath, and there you see some women from the back, alien women, and they have butt cracks, but not in the Super Nintendo.
But they're alien.
But yeah, so ActRaiser is awesome because of the way those two levels, the micro and the macro, interact with each other. Because to progress the world, you start out and the world is devoid of human life, and so you have to land your floating castle and go down and kill all the monsters, so that way the people have a place to build. And then when you zoom back out and you're flying around as the naked baby, you can tell the people where to build, and then they go and build, and then they find things that allow you to upgrade your character. They find spells. I think you can level up your main side-scroller hero dude as the baby. So then when you go back into the side-scrolling, you've got new spells and your character is more powerful. And those things just create this really awesome feedback loop where it's just they just, like you said, it's kind of a mediocre platformer and kind of a mediocre world building game. But when they're combined together like that, they're just so much better than either piece of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Plus you can be a douchebag of a god and earthquake your whole cities.
Well, not only can you, but you should, because that actually gives you a better city by the time you're done.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. It's not just binary, because you do have to use the lightning and destroy their.
To burn their houses
because
down.
Otherwise they don't build better houses and they never progress, and they don't make your.
Like Paris in the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like. But yeah, and that's, I mean, again, that's another one of those really early Super Nintendo games that. Why? And I know there's a sequel, and I know the sequel is balls, but why isn't anybody?
Yeah, because they took out the city building.
Yeah, it's just the side-scrolling parts.
And I mean, the sequel looks fucking amazing. It's one of the best looking Super Nintendo games, but it's kind of a chore to play. But like, why hasn't anybody ripped this off? Has nobody tried? I can't really even think of anything that's really on that same level.
That is the great crime.
The Super Nintendo.
Dark Cloud 2, maybe?
Yeah, Dark Cloud 2. Dark Cloud 2 is really good too. So
it is really good.
But we need more of these games.
Yeah.
The generation after the Super Nintendo was spent trying to figure out how to get triangles rather than how to rip off.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
That's true. The great crime of the 16-bit era is all the great ideas that went unripped off, I think.
Yep. True story.
All right. And so now Joe gets his fourth pick. Now that I sound amazing.
Again? Jesus
Christ.
Okay.
Yo, I'm sorry, do you not want it? You want to go home?
30 seconds.
You little wussy baby?
You got 30 seconds or Alex gets it.
No, he wouldn't pick the game I'm going to pick anyways, but I gotta go with Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
That was the one that I was gonna pick until I decided that there were better sequels.
I was trying to figure out what game you were talking about, and I don't know how Street Fighter.
I thought you might have been talking about it, and I was like, I wonder if he's talking about this game, or if you were going to do something really weird and pick like Street Fighter Alpha 2 for Nintendo or something.
I was surprised nobody had picked it earlier, given how it sort of seemed super iconic for the Super Nintendo to have Street Fighter 2.
Right.
Yeah,
it was a big thing.
Yeah,
it was a huge thing because I think. Well, here's the thing. The interesting thing about the 16-bit era is that the Genesis and the Super Nintendo in America and North America, like, really were pretty much just about even, like, pretty much the whole time. And the Genesis was ahead for a while. And I think Street Fighter 2 really helped the Super Nintendo gain traction because the Genesis didn't have a Street Fighter 2 until much later, and even when it did, it's kind of not that great.
3-button controller.
Yeah.
Well, even with a 6-button controller, it's still kind of not that great. You know, in the rest of the world, like, the Genesis is a dismal failure pretty much everywhere except, like, Brazil and, you know, parts of Europe. But, like, there you go. But I think that Street Fighter really helped get traction. And that was the game, man. That was the fucking game that everybody wanted to play. And there's 3 versions of Street Fighter 2 for the Super Nintendo. And for my money,
the best one.
I was going to say, the one that came out in the middle is the best one. Because the first version is, like, it's okay. There's a code so you can do mirror matches, which is nice, but it's kind of glitchy and you can't play as the bosses and it's slow.
Way slow.
Right, yeah. And then Street Fighter 2 Turbo is fast and there's a code to make it, like, insanely stupid fast. You can't even play it. And you can play as the bosses and it's balanced, like, almost perfectly. And then when Super Street Fighter 2... Yeah, right, exactly. When Super Street Fighter 2 came out, they slowed it back down and they added extra
a bunch
characters
of shitty characters.
Broke it. Yeah, they added a bunch of shitty characters that kind of rebroke it. And Super Turbo is, you know, I mean, I like it. It's cool, but this is still probably my favorite version of Street Fighter 2, even if you include Super Turbo, which never came out on the Super Nintendo anyways.
When people say Street Fighter 2 to me, I think of Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Me too.
And I feel like that's generally speaking the
In fact,
case.
when you say Street Fighter, this is the game that pops into my head.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would agree with that. Yeah, if someone's like want to play Street Fighter, I kind of assume.
Yeah, we're gonna get out our Super Nintendo controllers and
got Chun-Li on.
Yep, and a friend of mine got in the mail this really horrible, stupid video that was like promoting this game. So do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Hey, why wait? Get the Super Nintendo version of Street Fighter 2 Turbo and bring the arcade action home. Like Balrog instead of the crowds. And actually, Super NES version is better than the arcade version. No lie.
Were there?
I don't.
Were you Nintendo Power? He must have been a Nintendo Power subscriber because
yeah,
I still have those for Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct and something.
I got that
else.
one.
Yeah.
You also got one. There was one that we used to watch for Star Fox 64, which was a crack up as well.
Oh God. That's amazing.
But yeah, but he had this tape for Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and that was a crack up, and you know. But the game is just, I don't know. There's the reason I'm not really talking about it is because there's not much to talk about. Like, it's, if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, what the hell is? Why are you listening to this podcast right now?
Well,
like,
it means that you probably didn't grow up in that era, because anybody that was in their teens in the early '90s, or even 8, 9, 10. everybody played Street Fighter in some form or another. You either played it on the Super Nintendo or you played it in the arcade or whatever. I mean, that was the only arcade game where I ever had that experience. Yeah, the Game Boy. Poor
Game Boy
kids. Whoever
version.
played it on the Game Boy, I'm sorry.
I have the game. I should say. I gave it to someone as a gift. As a joke gift, I gave them Street Fighter 2 for the Game Boy. It's awful. Never play it.
But yeah, I mean this is also the game that made up for the fact that the Mortal Kombat Super Nintendo version was kind of shit. Like I love Mortal Kombat and it's a lot of fun, but if I had to pick, I'm taking Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat 1 is balls. Like, there's a video about it on the site. You can go watch it, and I'll tell you point by point why it sucks. Yeah. It sucks.
The reason the Street Fighter 2 Turbo is maybe the ultimate example of Street Fighters, because it's the one before they started adding all the shit to it. It's just it's really simple, and they didn't have to, they didn't have to make a big deal out of the combos, and they didn't have to make a big deal out of all the different modes and all that stuff. It's just, it was the last one where it felt like you could just pick it up and mash buttons and kind of have a good time, and that you didn't have to see the systems behind the stuff that was going on the screen to enjoy it.
Yeah. And my last word about this is, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm just going to mention it again because it still blows my mind. I didn't notice this until it was pointed out to me very recently. On the cover of this game, there's Sagat blocking a 100 hand slap from E Honda, and if you look really closely, there's a Dalsim in mid teleport, right in front of them.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that until last year.
Never mind. How did I know that and you didn't?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I never noticed it until someone pointed it out to me, and I squinted at my copy of the label, and I was like, "Holy shit!" So yeah.
There you go. All right, moving on.
All right, back to me. So I am going to pick a Kirby game, but I'm going to pick the quote wrong Kirby game. Now, there's 4 of them for Super Nintendo. 2 of them are puzzle games, or I don't know.
If it's not Kirby's Dream Course, then you picked the shitty one.
It is not Kirby's Dream Course.
Well,
it's not Kirby's Avalanche.
Yeah.
And it's not the good
Alex,
one, Kirby Superstar.
Alex, you just hit a double bogey.
Oh!
Oh, shit. And it's not the, quote, good one, Kirby Superstar. I'm going to pick Kirby's Dream Land 3.
That's good.
It is good.
It is good.
But whenever you mention Kirby on Super Nintendo, people go, oh, Kirby Superstar, right? And it's I like that game a lot, but it's just, I don't know, it's basically just a mini-game collection, sort of. I mean, there are platforming parts of it, and they're
kind of crappy.
They're good, but they're short, and I mean, some of them are better than others. I mean, so I don't know. But Kirby's Dream Land 3, the one thing that people hate on it for is that they pared down the number of abilities you have in that game, and they did. There's only, I think, 8 abilities. But the thing that makes up for it is that you have a bunch of different helper characters, and each ability does a different thing with each helper character. And certain characters and certain abilities will give you access to different areas and different stages and things. So, and certain characters make part. There's one stage where oh, and the stages all have special criteria. You can just go through the stage and beat it, and you beat it. But if you want the good ending, you have to meet special criteria to at the end of each stage, there's a little dude you meet, and you have to make them happy. So one person, one stage is the character in that stage is a pink hamster. So to make the pink hamster happy, you have to finish the stage with the hamster. When the hamster is one of your friends who changes your abilities, you can help them along and stuff. But if you play through that stage with the hamster, it's way harder. So you can either just beat it and just beat it. But if you really want to beat it, you have to be good at it and use the hamster to do the crazy wall jump up the spike wall, and then get to the pink hamster and make her happy, and then blah, blah. So, I mean, there's lots of depth to it. Even though it's a Kirby game, you wouldn't think it is.
Kirby games have a lot of depth. I feel like Kirby kind of gets a short end of the stick, both this game and the original Nintendo game, which I know that you bitched about that we didn't.
I did, yeah. How the fuck did you guys not see Kirby's Adventure in the NES?
You know what? I would have taken it.
Boring.
I would have taken it in the lightning round.
I will fight you.
I might have taken it in the lightning round if I had my head screwed on properly at the time, because I really liked that game.
You were sleep deprived at that point.
Yeah, it was pretty late. But, I mean, Kirby 3 is a great game, and it just... The big problem with it is that nobody played it because it came out 6 months after the Nintendo 64 was released. I mean, people had already moved on at that point. And that's the same problem.
So they could play Pilot Wings?
Well, and then you could play Mario 64.
Yeah, but...
I mean, people like when your game comes out 6 months after the new console has released, then it's just not going to get the attention that it deserves.
The another thing that we just haven't mentioned is that the game looks great. It looks sort of like a crayon drawing that's come to life. It has a really unique art style, and I really like it. It does kind of you can kind of tell it's on Super Nintendo. Like maybe if they'd done it on PlayStation, they would have had more power to make it look a little better. Yeah. Wait, why would it be on PlayStation? Whatever. If it had been on N64, whatever. But I mean, so you can kind of see where it's sort of hitting the wall of what the Super Nintendo can do, but at the same time, it just looks pretty great. The backgrounds are all really nice, if kind of bare. It's great. It's a good game. Everyone should play it.
If it'd been on N64, it probably would have looked just as shitty as Yoshi's Story, so it's probably for the best.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little attention to detail in that game, too. Little animations that Kirby does. My favorite thing is that when he puffs up and shoots a little air out, the little piece of air that he shoots out has Kirby's face on it, and he's angry.
Yeah. But, I feel like when you look at that, it's obvious that they learned a lot of the tricks from Yoshi's Island. Especially the ways that the parallax backgrounds work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really awesome multiple layers to the backgrounds that look really cool.
Yeah, there's a snow stage where half the stage is kind of obscured by snow, and yeah. So yeah, it's great. Everyone should play it. It's really good. Kirby.
I agree.
All right.
Go back, check it out.
So,
and your final pick?
Are we doing a lightning round? I was going to ask that.
It depends on what time it is.
Okay.
It's not that late. I think we might do a full final round and then lightning round the imports.
All right.
Okay, we can do that. So I'm going to take a game I've actually never beaten. But it's a game that you guys spent a lot of time talking about. But since my favorite game in this series is an import game and I can't pick it, I'm going to settle for my second favorite game in the series, which is Secret of Mana.
Yeah, that's interesting choice.
Wow,
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't even Wow,
I'm
hasn't
honestly-
been picked yet. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I expected that to go in second or third round, but I mean, like I said, I I played Seiken Densetsu 3 before I played Secret of Mana, so I kind of can't go back to it because I feel that game does a lot of things better. But at the same time, I have played it, so I've never finished it. I've gotten halfway, and every time I've tried to play it, I run out of steam at some point. But I mean, it's a great game. I mean, you guys spent a lot of time talking about it, so I don't think I can really add anything beyond.
You don't have a ton to add.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great game. I mean, that's another one that has not only a great soundtrack but a really unique soundtrack.
Yeah,
there's nothing else that sounds quite like it, and the 3-player stuff is fantastic.
Yeah,
and the graphics are awesome.
Yeah, it looks great.
It
game. Plays pretty well. I mean, it's an action RPG, and I love action RPGs. I actually listened to that podcast that you guys did about Secret Mana not too long ago. And when Mike said that there need to be more action RPGs, I just nodded in approval and said, mm-hmm. So
that's right, sister. Tell it.
That's right. Tell it. So, yeah. So I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time talking about that, because again, go back and listen to the Secret of Mana episode and pretend that I said everything. There you go.
We'll go back and redub in you going, yeah, at the end of every.
Yeah, every sentence.
I greatly desire a version of Secret of Mana where I don't have to wait for my weapon to charge up, so I can play through it again.
Yeah.
I greatly desire one with online multiplayer.
I
that too.
desire a version of Secret of Mana where I don't have to fucking grind my skills and magic and stuff. That's the one thing that I hate about this game that Seiken Densetsu 3 doesn't do that I like it more for it. But then again, you have to grind other things in that game, but that's neither here nor there.
You don't have to. You can finish it.
Well,
you can finish both games.
For class promotions, you have to get the specific item, and you kind of have to grind those a little bit. Let's not go there. It's not relevant. But yeah, I like that game a little more. That's all I can say. But it's Secret of Mana is still solid. If two bros show up on my island, I'm gonna need something to play with them. So, and my favorite beat 'em up was already taken. So, decided to go a different direction. That's all. So
that's it. So, that's a very good game.
Yep.
All right. Joe.
All right, this pick is actually easy because I knew no one would pick it, but it actually, in terms of where it would fall on my favorite Super Nintendo games, it actually probably comes after Contra 3 if I drafted it where it went, but I knew it wouldn't get picked. So I am going to pick a delightful little gem and little played game for the Super Nintendo called Demon's Crest.
That's a game that needs an update really desperately because there's some fucking amazing things going on.
Another one of those unripped off Super Nintendo games.
Yeah,
Yep.
no shit, right? Like, so it's the third in a trilogy, and all three of them are really fucking great, and they're all for different Nintendo systems, which is awesome.
There's an NES one?
Yes. So Gargoyle's Quest was for the Game Boy, Gargoyle's Quest 2 was for the NES, and Demon's Crest was for the Super Nintendo.
What
This
happened
is
to
my...
Gargoyle?
It's the same. They're all the same. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what happened to the gargoyle. He became a demon.
The correct answer is the demon ate him. I'm sorry. I'm taking up your time.
And actually this is weirdly appropriate too, and I feel like I mentioned something similar during the NES draft because they were announcing like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 stuff, and now they just announced a bunch of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 stuff. So Firebrand, the red demon from Demon's Crest, is a playable character in the new Marvel vs. Capcom that's coming out this fall. So it's weirdly timely, which is awesome because he's an amazing character. And this is a game that like you can tell it's a Capcom game of that era because it's very similar to Mega Man X, which is why I'm not that pissed that I didn't get Mega Man X because they're very similar, and I honestly like Demon's Crest maybe a little more than Mega Man X because of the unique shit it does. So like basically you start out as the red demon Firebrand who if you've never played any of these games, you'll recognize him as that motherfucker from the Ghosts and Goblins series.
Yes, that's his nickname.
Yeah.
Fire that motherfucker from the Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah. So Firebrand starts and you're just a red demon and you can float, but you can't really fly. And basically the goal is to get the 5 pieces of the fire crest and then to get the other crests like in the demon world. And so as you get each crest, you get a new set of powers. Like the first one you get is the Earth Crest, and the Earth Crest, like they each transform your look and your abilities. So when you get the Earth Crest, you become like the ground gargoyle and you can't fly anymore at all, but you can charge and you can like knock the shit out of shit. Which is, so like you...
Wait, it's structured a little like Super Metroid in that the new powers allow you to unlock different things and stages that you've previously played. So like that one, it lets you do a shoulder charge so you can break statues and doors that you couldn't access previously.
And it's also like that in that if you're smart, you'll sequence break it and get the air crest as soon as humanly possible. Because the air crest is way overpowered until you get like the final crest, which just makes you like badass incarnate. And the air crest is also the one that allows you to actually float, like to fly properly, so you can like ascend instead of just like floating at as high as your jump.
Because it's not even like a float. It's not like one like Mario where you can like float down. It's like you jump and then you hit the button again, and it locks your character into that section of the space. So you're like basically just scrolling sideways, but at a different level.
Right.
It's a really interesting way to control, because he's like a ranged attacker, so his little thing is he throws a fireball. It's really interesting to control the way that you aim your shots, because you can't duck, and you can't really aim up diagonally or anything.
Yeah.
So the only way to aim is to jump and then lock into those, into wherever it is.
Yeah, and his default shot, there can only be one on screen at a time. So, like, when you start out, you're kind of a bitch. And then, like, the more shit you get, like, the more parts of the fire crest you get, the more that upgrades your default shot. And then, like, the more you upgrade, the more crests you get, the more that upgrades, everything else. And then, like, there's a secret ending where you have to, like, beat the game, and then you get a secret password that you have to put in so you can fight the hidden extra boss, who's, like, ridiculously difficult to beat. And, I don't know, man, it's really super atmospheric. You've got tons of abilities, all kinds of new stuff to collect, and the atmosphere is just spot on. Like, all the monsters, like, with the exception of the ghosts in one level, which are just, like, sheets with eye holes cut out, which are kind of lame. But other than that, all the enemies are really cool, really fit the style. The graphics are great. There's a town that you can go into that's got a couple shops, and there's only one other person in the town. Not a person. It's this green demon who leans against the fountain and, like, taps on his chin thoughtfully. And he's like a total throwaway. Like, he's just there to say, like, 2 lines of dialogue, but he's always there, and he's just really cool looking, and he's, like, oddly animated for a throwaway character like that. Like, he sits there and, like, ponders and, like, taps his chin, and Firebrand's idle animation, he takes these, like, big heaving breaths, and, like, the way he flies, like, he pumps his arms, like, to flap his wings, and The music is really fucking like atmospheric, and it's like faux organ music through the Super Nintendo sound chip, and
it has a great intro too. Where you have to fight that zombie dragon right off the bat. That's a really great intro. And then you kill it, and then you go through this little door, and then it breaks through the fucking wall as you're trying to get out, and you have to fight it again.
It sounds like a game that I really need to play.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
I think you would still enjoy it.
This is not on the list of things that I just culled from tons and tons of things on the internet of what are the best Super Nintendo games, and I just sort of compiled a giant list to look at, and this was not anywhere on there, at least not enough to rise to the level of, I should add this to the list too.
No, it's really not.
Very
It's a damn shame. It's because nobody seems to have played it.
Right.
But it really is it's legit one of my honest top 5 Super Nintendo games. I love the shit out of this game. And I got a copy for like $6 from like a local retro store, and now like if you look on eBay or like at conventions and shit, every time I see a copy it's like at least $30. So, and it's not a virtual console.
It's sort of its legend has really gained steam. Again, that's like one of those things that nobody heard about it, and then the internet came up, and then there was that small pocket of fans that really was out there.
Highly vocal.
All right.
But the whole series is good, so I really highly encourage like checking out Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy, Gargoyle's Quest 2 for the NES, and Demon's Crest for the Super Nintendo, which is the ultimate entry in the series.
All right, moving on to Eric.
Oh man. Alright, so there's 2 games in my top 8 that I have left, which I was kind of counting on having to pick from like my second tier, like Illusion of Gaia or Super Mario RPG or Kirby's Dream Course. But,
you were serious about that Kirby's Dream Course thing.
Oh god, I love Kirby's Dream Course. It's probably my favorite Kirby's game, and I like Kirby games. But Castlevania 4 and Earthbound are still sitting out there waiting for me to pick.
It's true.
And I don't know which one to pick. I'm gonna be honest with you.
You gotta do something.
I guess
Castlevania.
I'll take Castlevania.
Good man.
I would argue that's the better choice, but that's because I don't like Earthbound, so...
I believe that is Super Castlevania 4, is it not?
Super Castlevania 4, yes. I mean, it's my probably, I don't know, top 3 Castlevanias. I don't know if it's my second or third favorite, but it's right up there with Symphony of the Night and Castlevania 3. And it's, I mean, it's a perfect reinvention of the Castlevania series for Super Nintendo. They lessened up on how clunky the control... Lessened up, they
unsuckened the controls.
Yeah, they unsuckened the controls. They made the controls
Simon
way
found
less clunky.
a great chiropractor.
Yep.
Yeah, he got his back fixed, and now he's ready to go out and really kick some vampire ass. And I love all the new stuff. I love that you can... The whip swing, the hooks.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really great addition.
There's the
way that you can...
showy-offy part where you like have to hook on and it like tilts the world around you.
Yes, yeah, the spinning room, that might be the first great example of totally unnecessary but totally fucking sweet Mode 7 graphics. Actually, Demon's Crest has the whole overworld map is Mode 7, and that's another good example of something that's totally unnecessary, totally uncalled for, but it still was kind of fucking way cool back in the day. But, yeah, it was the perfect improvement on Castlevania. It was just the perfect reinvention. It sped the series up a lot. It made the action a lot more fun. I think it's quite a bit easier than all the regular Nintendo Castlevanias. And like I said, all the new additions and everything just worked out great in that game.
Yeah, I would say that it's my preferred way to play Castlevania 1.
Yeah, that makes
There
sense.
are 3 versions there are 3 like generally wide releases of Castlevania 1, and one is the NES like Castlevania, and then there was this, and then there was a remake for the PlayStation, which I guess was actually a port of a remake for the X68000 or something weird like that. But this is like the best way to play the original Castlevania story, I think.
Yeah, because it has all the classic movie monster bosses like Castlevania.
And you can like hold the button down and wiggle your arm.
That was always the dumbest thing. I never knew what that was for.
Honestly, I don't know. You can use it kind of as a shield, like when enemies are flying at you, but it takes multiple hits to kill just about everything with it. So I don't know that it has a great amount of utility.
Can it destroy fireballs or
cool.
anything like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can use it to knock the fireballs from those double-headed dragon
Bone pillars.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a game. I mean, it's great level design. I love that part in is it the second or the third stage where you start out in the woods and then you ride that waterfall down to the bottom, and then you're in the Mudmen cavern at the bottom of it. I mean, just a lot of really great set pieces, I guess. And this is another game that has great parallax scrolling in it, just like Yoshi's Island. Because the best example I can think of is that I think it's the first boss is like this horse rider, like he's riding this skeleton horse. And the lead up to that is you're walking through a castle and there's these windows in the background. And in the background, there's the first layer, which is the castle and the windows. And then there's another layer. And then in the very back layer, you can see all these little tiny skeleton horses in their little pens, just milling around. And it's just like a really great detail.
Good stuff. And it's also not guilty of a lot of games that use parallax in this era, and I bitch about this all the time. Like, not so much on the...
They don't put it in front.
Yeah, they don't put shit in the foreground, exactly. I fucking hate that.
All right, Mike, final pick.
There's so many good Super Nintendo games left.
Yep.
This is probably my favorite console. And yeah, I feel really bad leaving behind so many great games. But I think if I'm going to pick my last game, I'm going to have to go for the last game that I consider kind of mine, a slightly lesser known game that I love way more than the average person who likes Super Nintendo games. So I'm going to go with Cybernator for my last choice. What? You don't have any more choices. What?
I thought we were doing a lightning round.
The lightning round is import games.
Oh, I thought we were doing another lightning.
No, you're done.
Okay, well maybe
You can't count on a lightning round. That's like weaseling on the whole. Your top five. You go. Oh, I'd love to have included.
That's okay.
blah, blah,
I'm okay with my top 5. I just thought we were gonna have a. Okay, never mind. But
So
Cybernator
Cybernator
is a great game.
Yeah, it's a sweet ass action game where you pilot a gigantic mech. And the graphics are really cool and full of little details like shell casings flying out of your gun. And if you're in a zero gravity environment, they just keep flying. They don't go to the ground or anything. It's just very thoughtful. It has a lot of cool set pieces, even if some of them have been ripped off from anime and other video games. But a whole level where you're basically just re-entering the atmosphere in free fall, fighting dudes. That's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
You fight like a robot that must be about a mile tall at the end of the game. It has a completely incomprehensible storyline that was butchered in its translation out of Japanese, so it makes no sense at all, but that's alright, because you've got a giant Vulcan gun, and you've got a sweet-ass laser, and you can shoot missiles, and you can even do like a mega punch if you want to. Cybernator, I think it's a very deep game in terms of its controls. Your mech's got really good momentum. You can jump, you can dash, you can block, you can shoot in. I once counted them. I think there are 32 different directions that you can shoot in. And the only thing that I can say against it really is that it could maybe stand to have a better control scheme. Like I've often felt that it's a game that might have been improved if it had like a dual shock style controller, so you'd have 2 analog sticks. Maybe you could just map aiming to one of them. Kind of ahead of its time in that way. But yeah, it's just a really good action game for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, the controls is what's always prevented me from playing more than just the little bit of it that I have. But it's really conceptually pretty amazing.
Cybernator has a weird second cousin in that LucasArts made a game called Metal Warriors, which is more or less the same thing. But that was published by Konami, and Konami made Cybernator, so people think they're related, but they're not. And that's kind of the same thing. That's more or less LucasArts hey, anime's pretty sweet. Let's make Gundam the video game, and then they did, and it's a side scroller. That game's pretty great too. That was I almost thought about taking it for my last pick because it's pretty much the same thing as Cybernator, only not quite as good. But there's a few other things that it does that are neat. Like you can get out of your mech, and there's a few parts where you have to get out of your mech and shoot dudes and hit a switch and then get back in your mech or whatever. There's no health gauge. Just your mech just gets effed up as you're playing, and like as it starts sparking and stuff, you need to just eject and find another one. And
there's very Mech Warrior.
Yeah, there's different kinds of mechs too. So like certain ones will be better for certain parts, and like there's a few. Each stage has its like it's very heavily like ripping off anime because each stage has a title like, and it says like doesn't say episode, but it may as well. And there's like one stage where you just like are on the back of a big giant battleship and you're defending it from dudes who are attacking it and stuff like that. It's pretty great. Cybernator I think is a little better though, but I kind of just like it a little more for some reason. But either way, you can't go wrong. So,
Mike,
giant robots blowing shit up.
Speaking of plugging things, real quick, didn't you do a Let's Play of this and of UN Squadron?
I've done a Let's Play of the last 3 games that I've chosen, and that is not coincidence. These are all games that I really, really loved when I was a teenager. Yes, I did video Let's Plays of Cybernator and UN Squadron, but I didn't narrate the Cybernator one. I gave that over to Brick Road, and who had never played the game before. It was kind of an experiment.
Yeah, so all the game companies need to go back and start ripping these games off.
Yeah.
Because I think that's been the dominant theme of this whole draft.
They did rip off
there's all
Cybernator.
these fucking great ideas out there, and just nobody's really using them for anything.
I almost wonder if the developers of games around the time the Super Nintendo came out, maybe they were feeling frustrated by the NES because it was pretty primitive. Even when it was released, the NES was not, high technology. So, it feels like by the time that we got to 1991, 1992, like Konami and Capcom were just like, oh man, you give me a real machine and I'll make you, best game you've ever played. And I feel
this game in particular, I don't know if we're still talking about Cybernator, but it was published by Konami in the US, but actually it was not made by them.
Oh, wasn't?
I guess.
Oh, well, whatever. They were both published by Konami then. Whoever made it, good job. Thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do feel like that the downloadable games for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 are finally kind of going back and exploring these things a little bit more, because I feel like Braid, and I just played Bastion a little bit the other night, and some of the other games that are coming out are finally sort of going back and really starting to innovate in that 2D sort of space again.
I think it's because really games are cheaper to make again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, those kind of
there's a way for them to get out.
Yeah,
right. There's a market for those games, because like with the PlayStation, as Joe mentioned, like not only was everybody trying to figure out how to make polygons work, Sony was mandating that they had to.
Sony was not letting the 2D games out.
Which is a damn tragedy. Which is why, by the way, anybody who likes these style games and wants to see a lot of them come to a kind of apex would do well to pick up a Saturn, and it's something that will let them play imports, because there is a lot of great unreleased like 2D games that never came to America for the Saturn that you can get like dirt ass cheap from Japan and just like find out like, oh hey, this is a thing that I've never played, but oh my god, what the fuck is going on? This is great.
Cool.
So,
and speaking of things that haven't come to America,
we should do a lightning round of just to finish off a top 25 Super Nintendo games, and then do a thunder round.
That means
all right.
Shall we
That's
do
what
that?
I
Gets the last choice.
So you get one non and one import.
Okay.
So
are we doing them together? Or are we doing the lightning round?
We'll do lightning.
Domestic lightning
Let's do
first?
lightning and then thunder.
domestic lightning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Alex,
Hey, what? We haven't
wait,
Yeah, we got an order. If we're still doing domestic titles, Mike should go again.
no, all right.
No, wait a
That's
second.
right,
So
'cause
we won't have a top.
stage for it.
We won't have a top 25 though, unless we all agree that there's one that we missed, or Kurt picks one.
Kurt's gonna pick one.
Oh, Kurt is gonna pick one. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, lightning round. Twing.
Get.
EVO, the Quest for Eden.
Oh, crazy. Totally
That is
crazy.
crazy.
I don't even know
Another
if I know
super
what that
original
game is.
concept never explored elsewhere.
It's kind of like a side scroller with RPG kind of elements, where every time you upgrade your character, you get to stick new shit onto him.
You evolve. You started as a fish, and you can get like better jaws and stronger fins. It's an action RPG,
Okay.
right up your alley.
It is, yeah. You should
Yeah,
check that
it
out.
is.
That's one of those.
Really weird Judeo-Christian themes, kind of shoehorned in, and aliens.
Yeah. That's one of the only really weird sort of Square and Enix games that sort of somehow managed to make it over here, because there's tons of games from both companies that got left in the dust, which was a shame. But yeah, that's a very cool game.
Cool.
Okay, so I guess it's
Eric.
my turn.
Yep.
Man, I'll take Kirby's Dream Course since I talked it up
Since
and I
you
love it,
mentioned
and
it.
then I went
Down
back
with
and
your bad self.
I tried to go back and play a lot of these games, and that one is one of the ones that I ended up playing for way longer than I had expected to. It's a weird mix of Kirby and mini golf. So Kirby is the ball, and then you can either hit him up into the air and make him bounce around, or you can putt him. And there's enemies laying around, so that way. So instead of counting strokes, what it does is every time you hit Kirby, he loses a little bit of health, and so he has 4 of his little tomatoes. And so if you hit every enemy you kill, you get health back. So it's kind of like you have to play through the levels, and you're also being scored golf style. Lowest score wins in the multiplayer mode. And there's also the traditional Kirby enemies laying around, and when you hit them, you pick up their powers. So there's a tornado guy that when you hit him, you can turn into a tornado and control Kirby for a little bit. There's a fireball that makes you go really fast and gives you a speed boost. There's the high jump thing that makes you, like, you can leap over obstacles, and it's all done in this weird sort of 3D isometric perspective. It's a totally bizarre game that I have no idea why it exists. I guess it started life as a mini golf game, and then somehow it ended up as a Kirby inspired mini golf game. I don't know. It's really weird, but it's a lot of fun.
All right, this is the lightning round.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, you've never heard of this.
That's quick. He's done.
Yeah, I'm done.
That was
I
all he
know.
had to
I
say.
played the shit out of Kirby's Dream Course. I know exactly what you're talking about.
He just means go fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Joe.
Joe.
Man, I gotta go with. I got a few that are still kind of on here, but I gotta go with Super Bomberman.
Oh,
that was what I was going to actually pick as my extra game.
Because now I feel bad.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I got that and in the big box with the multi-tap when I was
damn
a
right
kid.
you did.
And man,
Otherwise,
I know
what's the
that. Yeah, I mean, like, I know there are better Bomberman games like Saturn Bomberman, and I know that even Super Bomberman 2 is probably a little better in some ways. But I gotta say, like, the one that I played the most, the one that I stayed up all night with friends playing sleepovers with the 4-player multi-tap, was the original Super Bomberman. It's my most played Bomberman game, and it's the game that made me love Bomberman
It's awesome.
forever. So, Super Bomberman.
You are right to love Super Bomberman.
Alex.
There's still a lot of games left, so I'm kind of like, I'm still sort of unsure. And I feel really bad about leaving Super Mario Kart and Earthworm Jim 2 on the table.
You can't do that. You can't do that. Just pick a game.
I just did that. So, but
Blind
you know what?
Sally, man.
Somebody called the fire department because he's on fire!
NBA
Jam. Yeah, there's no
Tournament
way.
edition?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whichever edition my friend had that we played all the time. I'm assuming
I'm gonna make an executive decision here and say Tournament Edition.
Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with that game. I mean, it's not terribly deep. It's not, but I mean,
It's
you can
fucking
play as Bill
NBA
Clinton.
Jam. Everybody's
It's a basketball
played it.
game where you can play as Bill Clinton. It's fucking NBA Jam.
actually-
it's awesome.
My roommate and I played that yesterday because it was on my list to consider, and I wanted to revisit it. And we played as the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff,
Yeah,
Oh man.
and it's sweet.
Nice.
So.
yeah.
All right,
it's-
so
it's-
the extra one I was going to throw in if Bomberman got picked was Super Mario Kart. So
There you go.
Alex,
Okay.
I'm
yeah,
glad
Alex
that
gets
makes
his
it onto
picks,
the list.
Even though he didn't say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I
Super
was kind of
Mario Kart.
amazed it never came up. I was like, "Oh, was gonna pick this?"
Well, it hasn't aged as well as some of these other games have.
It's aged pretty goddamn poorly, as a matter of
Yeah,
fact.
there is that.
So, I mean, it's still a great game, but I mean,
There are many.
Yeah.
That is one of the few that did get tapped to its full potential. So you should play Mario Kart 64 or the GameCube Mario Kart or Crash. The
DS.
Crash Bandicoot ripoff of Mario Kart for PlayStation is actually really excellent.
Yeah, the Crash Team Racing game is actually
Yeah.
really good.
But I'm glad you said Mario Kart. I had a lot of fun playing Mario Kart when I was a kid.
yeah, it's a great game. I played a ton of it. It's just like, I don't know. I'm glad we've all agreed on this pick because it should be in the top 25.
Yeah, I
it's
guess
great.
so.
Yeah, that's.
Okay,
Earthworm
Alright.
Jim and Illusion of Gaia and Super Mario RPG and Earthbound should all be there.
Stop it.
Donkey Kong Country 2.
Okay.
yeah, I'm
Alright.
honestly
Donkey
very-
Kong Country is balls.
I was
the whole
waiting
series.
for that.
I am surprised
So-
that Earthbound did not make the 25. I'm shocked, actually.
That what did?
Earthbound is a love it or hate it game, and I think we almost fall on the wrong side of that
I
line.
love it, but it's not a top 5. It would be number 6 or 7 on my list, Charlie.
It's just I've gone, my entire life hating that game, and every time I go anywhere and say I don't like it, people give me shit for it all the
I feel
time.
like
and I'm
I feel
just
like
surprised.
mechanically it doesn't
That's
hold
just
up
you.
so well.
I'm just
Well,
completely
it never held up
indifferent to it.
mechanically.
Yeah, it was Dragon Warrior 1.
It was Dragon Warrior 2, I guess.
Yeah.
With
Yeah, I'm
rolling
just
hit point counter.
totally indifferent to it. But yeah, I mean, I will say this list does still contain Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Mortal Kombat 2, Tetris Dr. Mario.
Right.
Oh, fine. Super
Hey.
Punch Out if we're doing
Oh,
this.
Super Punch Out, yeah.
Soul
All right, we're not
Blazer,
doing this.
Mafia 2.
All right.
We already done it.
All
But
right,
I think
all
it
right.
speaks to the quality of the Super Nintendo's game lineup, which is one of the best any console's ever seen ever, if
Yeah,
not the very best.
Yeah,
All right,
I would say I would say that my NES, my love for the NES trumps my love for the Super NES, but I certainly respect anybody who would name the Super NES as their favorite console.
It's
Yeah,
mine.
I can't argue with that.
And I don't think anything else is really close, except for online stuff on 360 would be the only thing I would say is a comparable experience. It's just in terms of the sheer amount of fun that I've had doing with video games.
All right. Import
Thunder
lightning round.
Round
Alex.
imports.
Oh man.
Well, Kurt, do you have one?
I don't have one.
Okay.
Okay. I have many, so you guys go first, because I feel like
You should go
I can
first.
pick-
We're-
Oh, you
we're
should
setting
go
the
first.
order.
You're going first. I picked you. You're going first.
Yeah, you're
Right.
right.
I'm
There's an
gonna
order.
have to pick probably Final Fantasy V then, because it's sort of my secret favorite Super NES Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VI I like more, but Final Fantasy V is just a lot
Fucking
of fun.
A,
to play with
job
the
system up your ass, motherfucker.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
for real.
the
It's
job
just a lot of
system.
fun. It's yeah, music's great, of course.
Didn't get fully realized
Anyway.
until Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's still great in Final Fantasy V.
It's so
Oh,
great.
it's so great.
I actually like it more than Tactics because I
'Cause
like
you're
playing a
crazy.
traditional. Because I like playing a
Yeah,
traditional
kinda
JRPG more than playing a tactical.
You're way
the
crazy.
SRPG.
So-
yeah.
It's like either way, the job system's
Yeah.
fun. I'd rather play it in one genre than the other.
That's fine.
Yeah. But anyway,
All right,
Yeah.
Joe.
Well, since I somehow managed to have an entire list without a shooter on it, I guess I have to go with my overall favorite Super Nintendo shooter, which is Goku Joe Parodius.
Ah, yes.
And I don't really know what to say about it. You kind of have to experience
It's
Parodius
fucking
games
weird.
to. It's fucking weird, and it's a blast.
It is. Yeah.
So,
What's this one called again?
Goku Joe Parodius.
How does that translate? does
Is it
remember
is it
what
different than
fake
regular
Parodius.
Parodius?
It's not chatting Parodius,
It's,
is it?
it's not chatting Parodius. It's let's see. Fantastic Parodius, Pursuit of the Glory of the Past. It's
Right, got it. Thanks.
it's
Moving on.
it's Parodius 2 essentially is what it is. It's Parodius 2.
Nice.
The one that came before chatting Parodius. So
All right, Eric.
Isn't this obvious for you?
I don't know. What should I pick? What do you think I should pick,
You
Mike?
should pick that game that you bitched at us for not liking as much as that other game we talked about for so long.
Sequin Densetsu 3. Yeah, but there's that, and there's also the Terranigma, which I really like. Which I like.
Oh, well,
I like
your choice.
I like Soul Blazer a lot, but I think Terranigma was like that game, but fully realized, and also didn't look like ass like Soul Blazer did. So I think I'm gonna pick that one. Actually,
doesn't look
I
that
really,
bad.
I really wish
Terranigma.
that I'd been able to play Terranigma back in the day, because I think that might have been one of my favorite games of all time if I played it when I was 12. I think I'd have the same affection for it that I do like Yoshi's Island and Chrono Trigger.
All right.
All right.
Mike.
wait,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I need to correct myself really quickly. I lied. Goku Joe Parodius is the third one. Chatting Parodius came before it. It's still better than Chatting Parodius.
I really like chatting Parodius.
I like Chatting Parodius too. I like them all.
All right.
Mike,
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rockman and Forte.
good choice.
Because when I was a kid, you know, when emulators got big and I was looking up ROMs on the internet and I was like, holy shit, there's like a new Mega Man game I've never played. And I loaded it up and it looked like it was way too pretty to be on the Super Nintendo. And as
Yeah,
long as
it
you
does.
play as Forte, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I
'Cause
agree.
you can double jump and you can dash and you can shoot in all directions.
Because
and,
it's playing an old school Mega Man
it's
game.
got
but
shopping.
Mega Man X.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
So,
very
yeah.
cool game.
I bought that
That's
game
the
when I went to
second
Japan
best,
last time.
Super Nintendo Mega Man game.
Sure, that's a big contest.
There's X2 and X3.
Yeah, I
sorta.
agree with Mike.
Yawn.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
that's
but-
true. But
yeah. It's Mega Man.
I don't
X
know.
and
Right.
Mega Man 4.
anyway,
I don't-
There you go. We have listed a handful
29
of
games.
Super Nintendo games, and there are many, many more that people really like.
And for all those great Super Nintendo games, we could have done 2 more rounds of Super Nintendo imports that we never got that were also
Yeah.
totally great games.
Yeah.
I could have done 2 rounds more imports.
Yeah.
I could have done many
we
more
could have
rounds
listed
of
a million
imports.
shooters, but
I could have also listed Super Fire Pro Wrestling Premium X.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the wrestling game, but yeah, and that Star Ocean, and so many great games that we never even got to play when we were kids.
There's a bunch of Kunio games that we never got.
Thank God, because I never would have left my room, I guess.
Kunio Tachi no Banka. It's a fantastic beat 'em up. Might even be better than Ninja. Nah, it's probably not better than Ninja Turtles 4, but it's really good. Never got that.
So Alex wants us to recap.
Yeah, let's recap.
So in the order that they were picked, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Super Mario World, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 3, Mega Man X, Super Metroid, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Final Fantasy 2, Super Mario All Stars, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time.
Abbreviate it and say tit.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Tits. Yoshi's Island, UN Squadron, Out of This World, ActRaiser, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Secret of Mana, Demon's Crest, Super Castlevania 4, and Cybernator was the original list. The lightning round additions to make it 25 include Evo, the Quest for Eden. I was going to say the Guest for Eden, which would have been a completely different game.
That's one of those
Kirby's
Dream
Dream Course.
that never got.
That's right.
Never got imported.
Kirby's Dream Course, Super Bomberman, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, and Super Mario Kart. And then our import picks: Final Fantasy V, something Parodius, Goku Joe Parodius, Terra Enigma, and Rockman and Forte.
Nice.
There you go.
All right.
So now the question being, if you couldn't have your list, what list would you take?
Should we revisit which of those games belong to who before we discuss?
They know. They listen to the whole
We'll
thing.
post it in the notes too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, plus we're going to be talking about it right now.
Yeah.
So who wants to go first?
I don't know. Has anybody made up their mind whose list they would take?
I have, because
I'm
sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Go, Alex.
Okay. I am actually happiest with my list, but I'm sort
That's
of
the
torn
idea.
because Mike's list has Final Fantasy 3 and Mega Man X, which are two of my favorites. But the bottom of his list are 4 games that I could not care less about.
Alex,
so it's
Alex, I'm right there with
I
you,
really
buddy.
want.
That's my assessment.
So it's like
as
I
well.
really want to say Mike, but I'm gonna have to go with Eric because Super Metroid, while not my favorite, is still really good. Chrono Trigger is one of my favorites, and the rest are all games that I think could all be pretty good. So it's like I would take Eric's list, no question. Even though Mike has 2 of my favorite games, and he's an asshole for taking
Alex,
them.
allow me.
I wanted those.
That was the problem with the swapping in the other draft.
Yeah.
It was sort of the same.
It's.
Oh, yeah, I like this and this, but this other list.
I'm taking Alex's list because he has Zelda.
That is
That's
the right
I mean,
logic.
all these lists are pretty awesome, and I would love to play all these games. But Zelda is the one that's my favorite Super Nintendo game. And
Alex and Eric both have really strong lists, but if I could just take Super Mario World from that asshole Joe, I would put it on my list and I'd be happy as can be. But if I had to pick between Alex and Eric, man, that's a tough call. I guess I'd go for Eric's list because Chrono Trigger and Super Metroid are both pretty boss, and ActRaiser is a favorite of mine for many years.
Joe?
Yeah, I don't. It's tough. Honestly, I think even though I kind of don't really care that much about Final Fantasy 3 because I don't really like RPGs anymore, I did play it in the day and I liked it. But I think I have to go with Mike's because he's got Mega Man X and
I got the most action
UN
games.
Squadron, yeah, and he's got Out of This
I'm gonna
World.
say
and
that if I had to go hang out with one of you guys, then I'm gonna go hang out with Joe. Because he's got
because we got Contra
and Turtles
all the
and
two-player
Street
games.
Fighter and Super Mario World. Really, that's a fun 2-player
Dude, I've got
game, too.
NBA Jam.
And
Come on
Bomberman.
over. You can be Jazzy Jeff.
If all 4 of us were coming to one island, we could play. Because that was the thing that I forgot until I played it yesterday with my roommate. That actually NBA Jam Tournament Edition does support the multi-tab, so we could all 4 of us could play.
Oh man, I think that's something we might have to look into at say PAX.
Oh,
yeah, I've actually been
that,
looking
yeah.
into buying a Super Nintendo multi-tap, and I'm like, I should bring
Yes.
the Super Nintendo
I
multi-tap.
have
I'll just
one.
bring mine.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, cool! You have
I don't
one.
actually.
Great.
I don't have a
There you go.
multi-tap. I have whatever the Hudson or whatever knockoff was
The
called.
Hudson
Yeah.
one was
No,
the
the
real
Hudson one
thing.
was
Oh, was
the.
it?
That
I don't
was
know. Mine
the
has a picture
genuine-
of
Bomberman
the
came with the
so-
official one.
All right, maybe that's
Yeah,
it then.
came
But
with- it's got
there's
the
one you
Hudson-
can buy
yeah.
from Japan that has like a Bomberman face on it.
Yeah, looking at those on eBay today actually because I was thinking about Super Bomberman. So I was looking. There's like a generic ass one you can get for like $6 on eBay now. That's probably like made now and Taiwan or something. So they're definitely gettable.
So I guess that's it.
Well, there you go.
Super Nintendo.
That's it, I think.
Nintendo is
We
amazing.
salute you. And,
That's right. Happy 20th birthday, Super Nintendo. You can get wasted.
I forgot to even mention that's why we're doing this, but
But do we really need a
no,
reason?
we don't.
Yeah,
need a
do we
reason.
need a reason?
I
to
submit
talk
that we
about all
don't.
this
No
stuff?
more draft.